I have, there we go. It's really great to see so many faces. We at the network have been closed since the start of the pandemic. Our office has been closed, but we have been working probably more than we ever have. I know in May, June, and July, April, May, June, July, many of us were pulling 12, 14-hour days, 6, 7 days a week. So we miss seeing each other and being in person, but this is the safest possible way for all of us to be together, and to still make sure that our legislators, elected officials, and other policymakers hear from all of us. We have a phenomenal agenda for everyone today, and although we're calling it Legislative Day, it's mostly a few hours in the morning, and then we've got multiple breakout meetings scheduled for today, as well as for the rest of the coming week. And if there are legislators who weren't able to be with us this morning, we are going to schedule those legislative meetings in district virtually through our advocacy teams, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. We really have looked to the New Jersey legislature and the governor of New Jersey to make sure that everyone is safe and healthy and able to thrive even during COVID. I think we learned more than ever before that housing is health and health is housing, and that people who are at risk of losing their homes because of the pandemic need and deserve the most support that we could possibly come up with in this very difficult time. We are in the middle of a pandemic, and also a moment in American history where we have seen racial justice centered in the fight for justice and for equity. And so the two things coming together at the same time really have meant that the network has had to bear down and call on a lot of you to think about ways that we can lift up the needs of Black and Brown residents in our communities, to make sure that folks who have been hardest hit by COVID and discrimination get the resources, the policies, and the equity that they deserve. So we continue to do that. Our board has had a retreat to make sure that we are planning our strategic activities for the coming year, coming 3 years actually, centering racial equity and housing justice and health as housing as a priority. So we are working on that. I don't purport to have all of the answers, but I do know that we need to have a constant conversation and continue to ask those questions. And we need to bring our voices to our elected officials and hold them accountable for the promises that they make and the policies that they enact, good, bad, and otherwise. And so we are doing that through the launching of our 501c4, which is a slightly different political organization than our main organization. So we will be launching and are launching the Housing and Community Development Action Fund, and we will be sharing information about that forthwith. But before we go any further, I wanted to take a minute and thank our staff for doing it, as always, a bang-up job making sure that this event and every event goes smoothly. Big shout out to Nina Raniero, Sharon Barker, Matt Hurst, Jessica Hart, Arnold Cohen, Carol Mikulski, Leah Ferrante, and the rest of our incredible team for making this go smoothly. We've never done this before. We expect that there will be some glitches in the technology. So those of you who have children home zooming, schooling from home, know that even the best laid plans can sometimes go awry. So if you have any issues or questions, we're going to get to a slide that has information about how to contact us, but we really do ask that you just bear with us and give us the benefit of the doubt on this. We're going to try to make every piece of this go smoothly. And if you were with us for the Healthy Homes and Communities event where we switched venues in under an hour, you know that there's nobody better in this business than Sharon Barker, making sure that things go smoothly. But sometimes things come up, so we just ask for your patience in doing that. We want to ask that if you have comments, you put them in the chat, and I can see that has been very busy just in the 3 minutes that I've been yammering on here. It really is an honor and a pleasure to get to work for all of you, to get to advocate on your behalf, to get to raise these issues with our elected officials throughout the state. And I'm looking forward to hearing from so many of them during the morning, and also hearing from our members about what's important to you. So in the breakout sessions, there will be staff who will be supporting those conversations, but we want to make sure that you are being heard. So Nina's been kind enough to throw up the housekeeping slide so that I don't have to try to remember all of that. Everybody's placed on mute. If you have questions or comments, like I said, put them in the chat box. It looks like there's quite a few there already. The presentation is being recorded, but it's not being broadcast beyond this group of folks who have the Zoom link. So, we can come back to it if we need to hold legislators accountable and they said they were going to fight for something, we've got it on the videotape. So that is great. I want to go now to our board president, John Restrepo, who is the real estate director. Oh, I'm sorry. Before I get to John, as I mentioned earlier, if you do need help, please take a minute and just write down the email addresses for our staff. Sharon Barker, Jessica Hart, and Carol Mikulski are running things behind the scenes to make sure that things go as smoothly as possible. If you get dropped off the Zoom or something happens and you need to get let back in, please email one of them. And of course, you can use the chat box if you have a question during the presentation or during the discussion. Thanks, Mina. Next slide. Today you can expect little more than 2 hours filled with legislators from both parties and all across the state. We will have folks from the legislative committees that represent and work on the issues that are important to all of us, as well as people who just care about housing issues and want to hear from their constituents. So we're really excited about the diversity and depth of the legislative delegations that we're going to hear from today, and that you're going to get to talk to today and in the coming days. So we will also have we'll also hear from the folks at the governor's office, as well as the Housing Mortgage Finance Agency and our friends at the Department of Community Affairs. So we will have a full agenda, and we look forward to sharing those presenters with you shortly. With us now, and I'm going to turn the mic over to him in 1 second, is John Restrepo, the board president and the director of the Division of Housing and Community Development at Garden State Episcopal Community Development Corporation. John has been a tremendous board leader for the last few years and has graciously accepted another term to help us navigate, or at least be nominated for another term, help us navigate through these really very difficult and challenging times. And it's an honor and a pleasure to get to work with him and to call him my friend. So I'll turn this over to John to just say a few words to welcome everyone.
Thank you, Stacy. Welcome, everyone. This is the first ever virtual legislative day, and we're so glad that you are all here. I want to thank the staff for putting together such a great event. It's different than anything we've ever done before, but that hasn't stopped our great staff from ensuring that we continue to do the advocacy work. Advocating for what we need to make our communities thrive is central to the mission of the network. Last year, when we were together at the State House, we had an ambitious agenda to build a thriving New Jersey, and our combined voices led to amazing results. Without your advocacy, we would not have been able to restore the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. As you know, that was defunded for the 2 full terms of the Christie administration. So that was a big win for the network, so we can get to building more affordable housing and to expand the neighborhood revitalization tax credit program and pass the very important land bank bill. The network staffs advocacy teams around the state that have continued to engage our elected officials at a local, state, and federal level, despite the challenges that everyone has experienced during COVID, have been engaged. If you're not already part of an advocacy team, you should be. The Hudson County team that I participate in provides a great venue for all of us to discuss important policy issues locally and globally, and development opportunities. You don't have to be a network member to be in an A team, but you really should. The stronger our membership base is, the more we can accomplish. In addition to getting exclusive membership benefits, like our weekly updates on COVID issues and funding for COVID programming from national funders, membership gets you early access and discounted rates to events like an upcoming conference. If you aren't a member, you're missing out, so join. I want to thank all of you for being with us again. Enjoy the day, push for the stuff that we need for our communities, and let's make our voices heard. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, John. You can contact Carol Mikulski, who is our membership office coordinator and membership services coordinator, for information about joining A teams. And of course, Matt Hirsch and Arnold Cohen staff those advocacy teams around our state. We want and need our legislators to support the mission of our organization. We know that New Jersey has a deficit of homes that people can afford. At last count, there were hundreds of thousands of people who were unable to find affordable, safe shelter during the pandemic and actually even before the pandemic. As many of you know, our state organization is the National Low Income Housing, our federal organization of which we're a state partner is the National Low Income Housing Coalition. We've been able to feature a lot of their work on our weekly membership calls. But one thing that we do with them every year is release the Out of Reach report. And what we saw last year with the report that was released recently this year, which is only the data for last year, so it doesn't include COVID impacts whatsoever, really found that the lowest income earners are struggling tremendously to put a safe roof over their heads and that of their families. People have to work, people earning minimum wage, even in New Jersey where the minimum wage has been increased to $11 an hour this year, except for farm workers and tipped employees. Those folks are working 3 full-time jobs to be able to afford a 2-bedroom apartment, a modest 2-bedroom apartment. And that is just, it's not good for our economy, and it's not good for the people who are experiencing housing insecurity. And as we saw during COVID, if you are not able to have a safe place to shelter in place, to stay home and quarantine if you need to, you're forced to go to work in order to be able to make the rent, then you are putting yourself, your family, and everyone you come into contact with at risk. Or you lose your home and then you will wind up in a shelter and put yourself and your family at risk. So there has to be a better way to organize our housing system so that everyone has a safe, affordable place to call home. And that's why the network has been advocating for our Build a Thriving New Jersey agenda, which invests in the tools and policies and environment to make sure that our community development organizations are able to have the resources that they need to build homes for people all across New Jersey. It's a fundamental human right to be able to have a safe, affordable place to call home. And we know that when everyone has a safe, affordable place to call home, our economy and our communities do better. So we are continuing to fight for that now under COVID more than ever, because it really does directly impact our ability to keep ourselves, our neighbors, and our entire state healthy and safe. That is a large part of what we've been working on, what our policy agenda has focused on for the last 6 months. We have a few pieces of legislation that we're going to talk about today, and I will pull that up if we can get to the next slide, Nina. That'd be great. Thanks. I'm going to turn this over. I guess before we do that, we're going to talk about some other activities for today. My agenda is a little different than what's on the slide, but I'm going to ask Matt to talk about the key policy priorities for today, and then we'll explain to you why it's not just all going to be policy. There's also going to be a little bit of fun. So after the policy priority review, we're going to ask Sharon to talk about our trivia day and what trivia questions we're going to be working on and how that contest is going to work. So first and foremost, the key policy priorities for Matt, and then we'll talk about some trivia. Policy is fun, Drew, that's right. There's one trivia question that I'm not sure I want to have to weigh in on, so stay tuned for that. Matt?
Policy is fun. Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, John. Thank you, Sharon, and everybody. And thanks to you all for being with us this morning. We wish we were in committee room 6 at the State House, buzzing around, and bumping into each other, and we'll get there again. But it is amazing how, our advocacy operations and from, really benefiting from you all have, kept our advocacy moving forward, because there are some really important goals that we've set aside for this legislative day, and that have really taken a front seat in this season, particularly as since the onset of COVID. So once again, though, for this cycle, we are advocating for the full investment in the in our affordable housing trust fund, and calling for at least $35 million, which was last year's investment for the trust fund. Governor Murphy singled out that investment in his budget speech just a few weeks ago in Piscataway, and we were thrilled to hear that commitment to another year of full funding of the trust fund, particularly after a decade of disinvestment and rerouting those funds elsewhere. The neighborhood revitalization tax credit, we need to maintain those levels from FY 2020, when the governor signed legislation to increase the tax credit allocation to $15 million. This was a huge deal that required an enormous level of your advocacy again to reach this level. We need increased funding for county homelessness trust funds. These provide funding for the implementation of the locally developed plans to end homelessness. From the work of the A-teams, you know that these trust funds are incredibly important. And I know that, and if you're involved in an A-team, you know that already. If you are thinking about getting involved in an A-team, this is a great way to implement bottom-up policy when it comes to the Homelessness Trust Fund, because that is a heavy push, particularly on the county level. Next slide, please. Healthy homes, lead inspection and remediation, increased investment in addressing lead paint and expand upon the state's lead safe home remediation program, and also requiring lead paint inspections. Prior to home purchases and tenant turnover, and establishing educational programs about lead paint poisoning. In fact, because of your advocacy, this second point is being heard this week in the Assembly Appropriations Committee. So we are very excited, so we're very excited about that. So even during COVID, when it does seem like our policy response is rightfully centered around keeping people in their homes and keeping people safe and healthy, we need to make sure that the rest of our policy agenda continues to move forward, because as Stacy mentioned, it all plays a piece together. Next slide, please. Homeowner and renters' rights. Since the outset of this pandemic, the network has worked with allies as well as some key partners to promote what's called the People's Bill. This is Senate Bill 2340, which passed the Assembly at the end of July, has the endorsement of Governor Murphy. Again, this was the only piece of legislation that Governor Murphy specifically singled out during his budget speech just a few weeks ago. So we were very excited about that. We're working with our partners in the Senate to make sure that this gets a reconciliation vote. And basically, the People's Bill keeps homeowners and renters impacted by COVID in their homes, period. It's the only piece of legislation that outlines repayment standards to make renters and landlords whole. It's a good government piece of legislation. It responds to the crisis at hand, and it builds on Governor Murphy's Executive Order 106, which was the foreclosure and eviction moratorium. So this makes sure that when the crises are lifted, which they will be someday, we're going to, we're going to have a huge problem. Our communities are going to have an enormous problem on their hands when it comes to potentially a tsunami of evictions and foreclosures. So what we need to do prior to any moratoria being lifted is make sure that tenants and homeowners are safe and secure and have a way to move forward when it comes to paying their rent and mortgages. Eliminating the credit score standard. This bill was on our policy agenda before the pandemic, but it's so much more important. It's even more important now because it breaks the cycle of poverty. Removing credit scores and other assessments from the rental application process is critical. People may have bad credit now because they've missed rent or mortgage payments. What's going to happen in the future when potentially they can't get a new lease or new mortgage because of a history that they of a pandemic-related history? So this bill is particularly important. And that is about it. I really do encourage everybody on this call, though, to reach out and join an A-team. This is really where our bottom-up advocacy takes place, and we can really put that upward pressure on our legislators who are listening to us and make sure that our policy goals become reality. Thank you so much, everybody. I look forward to today.
Thanks, Matt. And I did want to just acknowledge that we have a number of our private sector lending partners with us today, and many of them are implementing the governor's executive order, which called for voluntary forbearance for homeowners and property owners, so that people who can't afford to pay their mortgage right now have a little bit of breathing room. That is a really important provision that the governor launched at the very beginning of the pandemic. So we just want to give a shout out to the private sector lenders who are doing that willingly and doing it in a fair way. We've heard from folks who are not working with regulated institutions, but have heard from lots of folks who have mortgage servicers that they are being asked to pay their full lump sum as soon as the forbearance period comes to an end, which really seems to defeat that purpose. So we're going to have to go back and continue to talk about how to make sure that folks who are suffering and not able to pay their mortgage are able to pay that back over time, which would be part of the people's bill. And so we need the legislature to act on that. But it's great that some folks were able to do that willingly and voluntarily and stepped up. So I just want to acknowledge that they're here. I want to turn this over to Sharon Barker and ask her to explain the trivia contest and maybe give us a taste of what that's going to look like.
I'm happy to do that. Good morning, everybody. I'm really glad you're with us. And as everyone said, this is a little different, but we make the best of what we can with every situation, and sometimes things work out a little better. So we're getting a lot of interest today, and quite a few of you are on here with us, and we're so glad you joined us. So we have a little trivia contest that we're doing. There's 10 questions that we'll be asking throughout the day, and there are slides with those questions. There's some basic information about New Jersey. There's some things that we're talking about today, and there is a $50 gift card for a winner at the end. So I would suggest that you keep a pad next to you. And as we ask the 10 questions throughout the day, write down your answer, keep track of it. And then at the end of the day, email it. And right before we finish, I will give all the answers, but only those who emailed their answers before I gave the answers get to be in for the gift card. So you definitely want to do that. We will be going
Aaron,
through.
They email that too.
I
Can we
was
put that in the
just
chat?
gonna say that.
I'm excited.
So I put the 3 emails in the chat, and we will give them to you again later today, right before you need to email them to us. But it will be to me, and I will see which emails we get before I read off the answers. So my email again is S as in Sam, Barker, BARKER, at hcdnnj.org. And we are looking forward to having you all part of the contest. It'll be a Visa gift card, so you can use it anywhere you want. And if we have a couple of winners, what we'll do is we'll see which one came in first with the right answers, and that'll be the person that gets the gift card. So make sure you're ready to go. And the first question, don't Google everything either. I know there's a slide in a little bit for it, but you don't have to do it now, Nina. We can hit it later if you want. If you can, that's fine. If not, that's fine too. Look at you, how good you are changing everything. Hi, everybody. Look at that. I can see everybody all at the same time. I love it. Hi. Renee, it looks like Hollywood Squares, and you've got the center square. For those of you who are old enough to remember Hollywood Squares, looks good to see everybody's faces and lots of burgundy shirts, which is terrific. So our very first trivia question is, which is the most densely populated county in New Jersey? A, Camden, B, Hudson, C, Passaic, or D, Bergen? No Googling. Look, try and figure it out yourself and keep track of your answers. We're going to check them later. So we'll go through and get that later. And we will have several questions. So again, the question is, which is the most densely populated county in New Jersey? Camden County, A. B is Hudson County. C is Passaic County. Or D is Bergen County. Oh, Nina, you're so good. You've got these slides going like crazy here, which is great. Thank you. All right. Don't put your answers in the chat box.
I was just going to
give
say that.
Everybody the answers. Keep track for yourself. And then at the end of the day, see who's got the answers emailed to me. Again, it's going to be an email to me, to Sharon Barker. So it's sbarker@hcdnnj.org. Okay. So I know we have, no, don't put your answers in there.
Hunterdon County is I'm going to go. I'm gonna take that one and say I don't think so, Leah.
And especially since it's not one of the answers that's provided.
Right.
I
That would,
swear the answer really is one of the four. So keep track of that, folks. The other thing is we have a little bit of breakout explanation today. I'll go over a little bit again.
Can
So
you
we
do
have
that?
several speakers that are popping on and off, and we're going to try and be as flexible as possible with people in case they have to run in and run out. But there are quite a few legislators today. We have 18 of them, 18 speakers set up that will be talking to you today and having an opportunity for questions back and forth so that you can definitely check with them. If you have a question, you can bring it up. And we will put it in the chat box, and then we will make sure that we get that question to them. We will also have some breakout groups towards the end, but just what's different is this year we're also doing breakout groups after legislative day is over. So the 2 hours that we've got this morning, after that, we will be having an opportunity for you to have meetings this afternoon. There's one at 11:30, another at 11:35. There's one at 11:40. There's a noon. There's a 3. There's a 1. There's all kinds of times that people are broken out to today. But we also have meetings happening tomorrow and later in the week. So if you are in an area that is not in one of the breakouts that we have a legislator today, we will get in touch with you so you can be in the meeting with them later this week. We were trying to make it work with their schedule as much as possible. I don't know if Deb is on yet, so I don't really want to go into too much else if she's not on yet.
she's not on yet, Sharon, but
There she is. She's in the waiting room. Okay, I just let her in. Yay. Perfect timing. She's so good. And Deb, we're talking about you as you're getting online here. You're right on time. So we will, this is the kind of thing that'll happen today as people are hopping on. We'll let them speak as they come on, and then we'll go back to our slides. So poor Nina is going to be going all over the place with slides today. We're going to try and keep it as in order as possible. So with that, I'm going to be quiet and let you put Deb on with the speaker, and she can speak. So keep track of your trivia questions.
So thanks so much, Sharon, for explaining that. And I think we're going to say that no, Hunterdon County does not qualify as the most populated county in the state of New Jersey. But thanks for playing, Leah. We are thrilled to have with us Deborah Cornavaca, who's the Deputy Chief of Staff for Outreach for the Office of the Governor. Deb has been a longtime friend of the network and has been with us on a few member calls. She spoke last year during our legislative day in Committee Room 6, and was right with us when we were chanting all the money in, none of the money out. And we know that the governor's office has worked really hard to make sure that housing is healthy and safe for people during this pandemic. And part of that is their ongoing commitment to investing in the Housing Trust Fund and making sure that that money, to the greatest extent possible, is not diverted, and certainly not diverted to other resources. In this year's budget, which is really only a 9-month budget, there's a commitment of at least $35 million to remain in the Housing Trust Fund in order for everyone to build and create homes that people can afford, and that any money that is being used for other purposes is going towards rental assistance, and particularly in the possibility of helping people who are not eligible for other rental assistance in other programs. As you may know, the CARES Act had allocated some money. We are waiting and advocating for the federal government, and in particular the U.S. Senate, to get off their duff and pass the HEROES Act. There's $100 billion in rental assistance that is sitting on Mitch McConnell's desk. 3.1 billion of that would come to New Jersey. We would be able to help people keep the roof over their heads and not have to do anything else. Well, we'd have to do some other things, but we would have a much better situation if that money were forthcoming. It is not, and so this governor has done great things to make sure that people are safe, including an ongoing eviction moratorium that is stronger than the one that was recently announced by the CDC. We're thrilled that the CDC took the step that they did, but Governor Murphy's eviction moratorium goes even further and better than the Trump administration. And second, they allowed tenants to apply for and use their security deposit for rent when they needed it. And the governor has been a huge advocate of the People's Bill, including giving us a shout out at the budget address, as John mentioned earlier. And Matt mentioned earlier. So we know that this governor is working tirelessly and his staff is working around the clock to make sure that people have safe, affordable places to call home. It's an honor and a privilege to introduce Deb and ask her just to say a few words about why Legislative Day and the advocacy that we're all doing matters so much.
Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Sharon. It is a thrill to be here. I see Arnie and I see so many other familiar faces. It is a treat to see you all on Zoom. I say we're in the room together now. This is kind of our new room. And I appreciate so many people who've turned on your cameras too, so we actually get to see everybody's face. Really appreciative of the invitation, but even more so appreciative that you found a way to do this and adapt to the circumstances of today and continue the work that you're doing. It is so critical, and we are so grateful. On behalf of Governor Murphy, we want to thank you deeply for your partnership throughout this pandemic, throughout all of the administration, but particularly through the pandemic. We know that it has changed every aspect of your lives, your personal lives, your professional lives. Everything we knew to be routine and normal is now different. And over time, it might be our new normal and our new expected way of doing things. But we have felt such tremendous partnership with all of you and across the state. This is something literally we could not do alone. We could not do it without you. So we want to thank you. And as a result of everything that you and collectively across New Jersey has done, we are now one of the safest states in the nation. We're proud of that, but we are not complacent about that, and we cannot take it for granted. So as we move forward together into the fall, we know that there are a number of reasons why we have to be particularly vigilant with all of the precautions we've been taking now for months. We have to keep wearing our masks. We have to keep the physical distancing. We have to do our testing and our tracing. Testing is widely available, should always be free, should be available to anybody who needs it, is concerned, is showing symptoms or not showing symptoms, and contact tracing is critical. So we do ask that everybody help the broader community understand the importance of not just answering the phone if a contact tracer calls, but cooperating with them. We have social services lined up for people. Food assistance, housing assistance, employment assistance, if anybody should need to be in quarantine or isolation. But we know that the way that we will control this virus together is to continue to do these things in unity and in partnership to get us through until such time that we have effective vaccines across the market. We're not confident that the federal timetable is one that we would hold our breath for. But as a state, we are already beginning to prepare. So when vaccines come on the market, we will have our distribution system set up. We will have our priorities set up. We will have those pieces of structure in place, which is, a far cry from where we were when the pandemic hit, because as you know, we were not exactly told how much we should have been worried about it as early as it appears the federal government knew. So we were flying that plane over the ocean at 30,000 feet with one hand tied behind our back. Moving forward together, we're going to be able to prepare for the future. And in that respect, we're also looking obviously at stockpiling PPE. We're looking at the risks of, a combined flu and COVID season, being much more aggressive, much earlier about being able to take actions. And that's part of the reason that in the governor's budget, you see that he's put aside a $2.2 billion surplus, which is a lot of money. And I know it could build a lot of homes right away if we had it on the market. But we've put that money aside in surplus in case we need to do anything akin to what we saw in April and March with respect to shutdowns. So we have the economic security in our bank at the state level to see us through that crisis without the level of impact that we've experienced and continue to experience right now through this crisis. We know that that is the right and responsible thing to do, along with the sustainable revenues such as the millionaire's tax that this governor will continue to fight for. Now more than ever, the inequity and the racism of the structural racism within our governmental policies have been, laid bare over COVID. We knew they existed before, but somehow collectively there was a willingness or a lack of willingness to really make the changes necessary. We hope right now that COVID has made it so that there is no excuse left in the book. And that together we come forward. We know that asking our wealthiest who did not suffer neither the health impact nor the economic impact of COVID, that our essential workers who are predominantly communities of color, disproportionately women in the workforce, for example, that they have suffered, they should be able to benefit from the revenues. We could ask the millionaires to pay 2 pennies over $1 million on their million and over income. We think it's fair. We think it's the right thing to do. We'll continue to fight for it. Other revenues in the budget are there to balance our needs to borrow. We want to borrow minimally because we have to start paying that back right away. We don't want to mortgage our future to a large debt that a decade from now they're still paying for in large amounts. And we want to make sure we're investing in the urgent needs of here and now while also planning for the long term. And so to Stacy's point, we desperately want to maintain the housing fund for affordable housing and for those projects. But if we do need to use some of it, what it's going to be used for are housing related issues such as rental assistance for undocumented brothers and sisters in the state and families in the state for whom we cannot use federal dollars. The federal government under the current leadership will not allow us to access those dollars for rental assistance, but we want to put in money from the state. So we may be using money from the trust fund for things like that. But it's all going to be housing, and it's all going to be related to getting more people into homes, but more importantly and urgently right now, keeping people in their homes. And that is the crisis that I'm sure weighs on all of you every day right now. I'm sure that you know it, feel it, live it, see it, help support it more than any of us in Trenton can say that we do on a daily basis, the housing crisis that this COVID, that this pandemic has created. And while we did a lot of immediate and short-term actions, and thank you, Stacy, that the governor is proud of in terms of moratoriums, in terms of using security deposits, in trying to keep people in their homes, we know, A, that is imperfect. We deal almost on a daily basis with bad actors. We were dealing one today in Newark, where some people are getting locked out. We have to pull out all of our stops. I joke that one of my colleagues needs to go put his cape on again because he needs to go ruffle feathers in whichever municipality we sent him to. But we know that there are bad actors out there, and we also know that even if they're not actively evicting people, they may be threatening, and there's a sense of insecurity and stress that comes with that is terrible to live with. And we also know that the actions we took are the short-term actions, right? So with the rental assistance program we put in place, we were trying to turn from the short-term immediate crisis actions to the longer-term solutions. And we still need to do a lot more in the state and nationally, to Stacy's point. Those federal dollars will be critical. The federal backing of what we want to do at the state level will be critical, but we also know that the legislature has actions that we're waiting for them to move on. The governor in his address, and I think I heard Stacy say that she had never heard a budget address housing as much as this one. And it made me happy in a way, but it also was a sad reality of how critical we are, the issue has become as if it wasn't critical already, right? We knew New Jersey had a housing problem going into the crisis, but we need those long-term solutions. We need the legislature to assist in moving the legislation through that will allow the longer-term solutions to be put into place before we hit the end of the health emergency, the end of the moratoriums, et cetera, et cetera. And I also want to say, and I'm sure you're aware of this, we're heading towards a court crisis, right? Besides the fact that we're short on appointments of judges, we don't want all of this to end up clogged in the court system where we know one side ends up with representation and the other side does not. It is not a balanced system in terms of assisting the the renter or the person who's risking losing their home. And so we're trying to deal with that as well. So these longer term structural pieces are hard. And that is why we need your advocacy, your help, your voices, you sharing the real world experiences of people across New Jersey. We need you to bring that up to the forefront of our policymakers' minds and hearts so that we get them to take the actions that are necessary. We also, and I will do two last shameless plugs, need everybody to help engage in the census. We have 2 more weeks left before the census closes a month earlier than anticipated due to the decisions made at the federal level. and it is the beginning of Hispanic Heritage Month today. It runs September 15th to October 15th, and our focus right now is making sure our undercounted communities get counted. A lot of those communities are high communities of Hispanic communities and communities of color. There's particular and obvious fear within our immigrant communities this year to fill out the census, but if we go undercounted today, we pay for that in 10 years of lost money on the table to do things like support housing programs from the federal level. So I need you, all of you, to please engage with anybody that you're talking to, engage them in the census, walk them through filing it, which should take them no more than 5 minutes online, and make sure that they get counted. And the second piece I'll say connected to that is to make sure they vote. Voter registration has moved to online this year. Voting will be by mail or in person. The governor goes through the 4 ways you can vote. There are increased number of drop boxes if you're feeling a certain, je ne sais quoi, lack of confidence in the United States Postal Service right now. You can vote in person on election day, although the polling places won't be as numerous. You can use your vote by mail ballot and mail it in, drop box it in, or drop it off at a polling place on election day. Votes matter. Votes will have huge implications for our future. So let's do, together we need to do what the governor did in his budget. We need to deal with the urgent and the immediate. We need to pass a budget with the millionaire's tax, protecting the trust fund and investments in affordable housing. We need to get the legislature to move on the bills that will allow us to look for the long-term solutions. We need to get counted today so we can get funded tomorrow. We need to make sure we vote. And that is why I'm so grateful that all of you have come together, continued your advocacy, not missed a beat throughout all of this, and know that we recognize how critical your work has been throughout all of this, before this, but throughout all of this, and will be probably twice as critical in the months to come. So we are here to partner with you. We're here to support you. We're here to hear your ideas. We always say we will take the good, the bad, and the ugly. We like to start with the good, but we'll always get to the bad and the ugly from you so that we know how we can move forward together, help make New Jersey stronger and fairer together. So we wish you all a great day. We hope that you get to talk to lots of wonderful people who you influence in decision making. And please know this office is here to partner with you. Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you, Deb. It is just a godsend to be able to have people in the front office who understand these issues, care about these issues, put people who are at risk front and center for policy-making decisions after 8 years of working or not working with people who simply didn't care and didn't even recognize that the foreclosure crisis was happening to our communities, and basically tried to let the market take care of itself. Every time we go through something and I call Deb and say, what about this and what about that and what about the other thing, and let's try to figure this out. It's just such a breath of fresh air to be able to have partners in the legislature and in the front office who get this work, who want people to succeed, who want to lift every community up and make sure that every person is counted and that their voice is heard. So it really, it's really a blessing to be able to do this with you and with your colleagues. You have a tremendous team. The folks who work with you, Raj, Kia, Brianna, just, I'm sure I'm forgetting, Kelly, just a phenomenal team of folks who make sure that people know what's happening and are also willing to find out from the grassroots what needs to get done. We sometimes call Deb and say, you're not going to like this, but we need to make something different happen. And we never get well, we can't help you and you either do it our way or it's the highway. It's always, we're going to try to figure out a way through. And that is really a partnership that we have put tremendous value in. We're not always going to agree on every last little thing, but we have the opportunity to have an open, honest dialogue about the ways that we can make sure that everybody in New Jersey has a safe, affordable place to call home. I really did mean that when I said at the budget address. I've been doing this for 30 years. I have never heard a governor talk that much about housing in any speech, and it's both good and bad. And Deb was sitting more than 6 feet, but not too far away from me. And I pinged her and said, he really, gets it and understands and wants to be part of what we're doing and lift this work up. So nobody could have predicted that that we would be where we are. But having lived through Superstorm Sandy and watched what happened to survivors of Superstorm Sandy or didn't happen for them, I am grateful every day that Governor Murphy is running this recovery and not somebody like Chris Christie, because I don't know where we would be if we did not have that kind of leadership. So that is my personal opinion, but I believe it's widely shared by lots of members of the New Jersey voting public. So we are really grateful to you, Deb, to your team, to your colleagues, to Jeffrey and Justin and Raj and everybody who puts up with us, asking lots of questions and taking all kinds of phone calls. So if there's any, I don't see any questions for Deb in the chat, and I know she's got to go shortly, but if anybody had a question, Sharon, we're not doing our usual questions and check questions in the question box, but I didn't know if there was anything that came up.
I do see some good ideas here and some comments about making sure, looking at mediation and making sure that there is representation for people, and also the homeless prevention issue. So I am looking at some of the things to make sure we pay attention to. Happy if there's any specific questions you want me to look at.
Yeah, I think one thing that we just want to flag is this is the lifting of the moratorium when that happens, and we know it will happen. That there be a fairly large grace period for people. We're working feverishly to pass the People's Bill so that there's a longer term grace period, but the evictions that have already been filed are really problematic. There's probably 45 or 50,000 evictions that have been filed already. And so somebody from Ocean County in the chat noted that that all of the judges in Ocean County are being transferred over to tenant landlord cases, which is problematic because they're not trained in those, they don't have experience in them, and it means that the courts are gearing up to let those cases go through. So there are some protections in the CARES Act that require tenants to be treated in a certain way before they're evicted, just under the CARES Act alone. And so we need to make sure that the Office of the Administrative Courts is following that. And I believe that there's a whole component of legal advocates who are working on that issue. We are supporting them and amplifying their requests. I'm not a lawyer and I don't play one on TV, but I do sometimes like to insert myself into legal stuff. So we have been supporting that effort. And I think that they are probably not getting the kind of answers that they're looking for. So we may have to take some of that to you guys and see if we can't navigate a third way through. So can we just everybody can take themselves off mute for a second and give Deb a big round of applause and say thank you so much for being with us and for all the work that you're doing. We really appreciate it. And it might not be all the money in, but it's most of the money in,
Yes.
and most of the money
Yes.
stays that way. So that's what we're gonna advocate for this year in this 9-month budget. And we know you'll be hearing from us. So we appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you. And a special shout out also to Nina, who does an amazing job at keeping us well informed with information coming from all of you and about your upcoming events. Incredibly critical and well done and important. So thank you for that as well.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, have a great day. Hope you have a good time with your next pop-in visitor as we fly through cyberspace, and you know that we're here to partner with you, so reach out anytime. Thanks, Stacy.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Bye. I'll find the button, I swear.
It's okay. You're welcome to stay as long. We know you have like 47,000 other meetings. So Sharon, do you just want to cover a little bit about the census real quick before we go on to the next speaker? Do you want to just talk about the work that we've done on that?
Well, we do have Senator Gopal just came into the chat room. So to respect his time, I'll wait and let him speak first.
Okie doke.
So he just popped in with us.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Senator Gopal, for being with us today. We really appreciate it. For those of you who aren't familiar with him, Senator Gopal is the senator from Legislative District 11 in Monmouth County. We have quite a few members down that way in the shore area. I'm not sure where we would call that as part of the Central New Jersey debate, but I'm from Central New Jersey, and Senator Gopal, I think, is also from Central New Jersey, so go Central New Jersey. He is a member of the Health, Human Services, and Senior Citizens Committee, and he has been very generous with his time today and is going to say a few words to the group, and then he's also going to meet with constituents, of which there are quite a few, separately in a separate Zoom room, and thankfully nobody's relying on me to make that separate Zoom room happen. It's the Zoom where it happens. We'll talk about what makes up Central Jersey after the senator has a seat. We don't want to take up his time, but we are grateful that he's here. Thank you so much for being with us, Senator.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I appreciate it, Stacy. Hope you're doing well. I obviously there's the common issues that we always talk about are housing, healthcare, quality of life, and housing is always in that first group. So thank you to what all of your members are doing. And I know for the past 30 or so years how hard your organization has been working, and the over 250 nonprofit members, who many of them are on here. I try to work closely with the organizations in my district, which includes Red Bank, Asbury Park, Neptune, Long Branch, and as you can imagine, we have a lot of housing needs, housing challenges there. We have a diverse district in Monmouth County. The other end of the district is Colts Neck, Freehold Township, communities like that, which does not have a lot of housing challenges. So it's a very diverse district, a lot of urban areas as well as a lot of agriculture areas. So we really see all the different issues. You know, I think as a Senate, we need to continue to promote housing equity. New Jersey's past housing policies have really resulted for a long time in concentrated poverty in urban areas and migration of both wealth and jobs to the suburbs. The lack of housing, your good jobs, reduced opportunities for families with modest incomes. And New Jersey will need to leverage market forces and public policy to create housing opportunities for lower income households. I think Governor Murphy has done a good job in much of that, in the sense that he's starting to finally have conversations on these topics that were unfortunately have been ignored for the past decade. A recent report found that Black and brown renter households shoulder an incredibly disproportionate share of the rent burden. The report predicted that approximately 44% of non-white New Jersey renter households compared to 32% of white New Jersey renter households. It begins a conversation on home ownership. I think it's starting to happen, and how we can promote and encourage that, and give people pathways towards home ownership. Because right now there are not pathways. Not much good is done through inheritance and through other forms that are fine and ethical and legal and all that, but we need to make sure we're giving everybody an even playing field and lifting folks out of poverty and giving them those options. Eviction prevention, rental and foreclosure forbearance, and rent relief can help a lot of these longstanding impacts as it relates to systemic racial wealth and housing gaps. And maintaining the funding for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Since 2010, more than $300 million meant for construction of affordable homes have instead been spent on other state housing programs. During that time, money collected from realty transfer fee, which you're all familiar with, imposes when a home is sold, should have been diverted from its original intent for years. Instead, it's used to plug budget holes, which has been a long, I don't want to use the word gimmick, but long tactic for Trenton from both parties, dating the last several decades, as recently as up until Governor Whitman, who really expanded on it, and every governor after that really pushed it. Governor Murphy is actually finally taking some of the first steps. He's last year, he was the first governor in about a decade to actually allocate all of the money collected in the realty transfer fees that are supposed to be earmarked for built affordable homes in the state. And that happened. The governor's recent budget proposal, as you all know, is DCA leveraging over $100 million from the Federal Emergency Solutions Grant and the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to support COVID emergency rental release assistance funding. It also had a number of other things. I'm not going to go into all of them, but Affordable Housing Trust Fund funding, offsetting general expenditures within the trust fund, offsetting prevention of homelessness, offsetting shelter assistance, and also included a line item for affordable housing under the DCA, flat from last year, but very happy that it was not cut. So I look forward, as I have with many of your organizations, not just in my district, but all over that have similar interests, to push for healthy homes and communities, access to stable, affordable, and safe housing, as it's critical for a person's not just physical well-being, but their family and their loved ones' mental well-being. The homeless population is one of the most vulnerable due to COVID-19 and other similar public health emergencies. So it's very challenging for someone who's experiencing homelessness to keep a job or stay healthy. And we know for a fact that COVID-19 disproportionately affects those who are in lower income communities, because they sometimes don't have the choice of going to work. I have the luxury of working from home. Not everybody has that luxury. And we have to keep that in mind, that those are some of the communities and some of our urban areas where the COVID-19 will spread the most. So thank you for having me on today. And I look forward to working with your organization in the years ahead.
Thank you, Senator. We have a few people who are going to meet with you, or actually more than quite a few people who are going to meet with you at 1:15. Nina sent out the link to everyone, but I just wanted to really encourage you to become a prime sponsor, or become a co-sponsor of the People's Bill, which I know you voted for. Thank you, when it was up in the Senate the first time, but it has changed quite a bit since then. Went over to the Assembly, as you probably know, and became really a grassroots, community-based approach to keeping people in their homes, giving tenants and homeowners 30 months to pay back what they owe, protecting people's credit scores, and making sure that no one can be evicted while we navigate this public health crisis. So we really do need your support and your voice in the Senate as the, as a member of the Health and Health and Senior Services Committee. It really will have an impact on the people that you represent. So we would, I know your staff has been in touch with Matt Hirsch, our Director of Advocacy, about the bill, but we really can't encourage you enough here today to become a sponsor of the bill at your earliest convenience. We need as many senators and as many senators from your caucus who care about these issues and can obviously talk so eloquently about the impact that it's having on Black and Brown communities in particular, and on lower income communities, to help us get this bill through. We are very, very close to having the most progressive legislation to help tenants and homeowners in the entire country, far and away better than anything that the Trump CDC moratorium could propose. But we really do need leaders like you to be sponsors of the bill right away.
I'm take a look at the bill ASAP. Yep.
Great. Thank you so much, Senator. And we really appreciate you being here with us. I don't see that there are any other questions in the chat, although I am not the fastest on the chat. So if there are any, Sharon.
Actually, I think because we have
we'll save
some
those.
of our next speakers, what we'll do is we'll save those questions for the breakout group with you, if that's okay, Senator.
Absolutely. I'll see you guys at 1:15 or so.
Terrific.
Great. Thank you so much for being with us.
All
Thank you for being a champion. We appreciate it.
Have a great day. Stay safe.
Thanks. You too. I believe that we have Assemblywoman Downey, who is scheduled next, and she's actually shares the legislative district with Senator Gopal. So that's an area of both strong representation by our network members and strong legislative leadership. We are really grateful to have Assemblywoman Downey with us. We're on to 5 pages of people.
Yeah, I'm
over
here.
100. Hi, Assemblywoman. How are you?
Hi, good. Is it not
Great.
getting me on?
No, it's just that there are 5 pages of people on, so I was like scrolling through to make sure I could see you. It's great. Thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate your support and
Yes.
your friendship over the last few years. We've been with us at Legislative Day before, so you sort of know the drill, but we appreciate your ongoing advocacy and support for the agenda to build a thriving New Jersey. I want to give you an opportunity to say a few words to the 100 and so folks that are with us on Zoom right now. So take it away, Assemblywoman Downey.
Well, thank you. I mean, I'm very happy that, we obviously in Governor Murphy's revised fiscal 2021 budget, that they're maintaining $35 million for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
Right?
Okay, perfect. Yeah, okay.
And that'll be through June 30th, 2021. And we're committed to the state's Affordable Housing Trust Fund because we know that it provides the opportunity for communities to have the essential support they need for their housing. We need to make sure that we continue to address the shortage of affordable housing within our state. We need to make sure that we strengthen our diverse and wonderful communities throughout and stimulate our economic growth throughout those communities. And that's the way we know that we need to do that as well. We need to protect people in terms of the mass evictions and foreclosures that we've had throughout our state. So I voted in favor, and that's why we voted in favor of S2340, the People's Bill, because we want to make sure that that doesn't happen. We know that we need to keep the current crisis at bay and help with that, but that needs to be something that continues to happen even after the pandemic we can't wait, has finally gone. But in the wake of all of this, we just know that we need to give more protection to our tenants and to our homeowners who've been able to pay their rent and been unable to pay their mortgages. We want to make sure that they do that, because obviously, what are we going to do? If they don't have housing, then we're putting more pressure on our other support systems, our other social service systems, including our shelters, our homeless shelters, Medicaid, and foster care. And that's a terrible thing for families just generally. As chairwoman of the Assembly Human Services Committee, that really, is something that's very, something I pay attention to very strongly. Well, just generally I do. I mean, I have a master's in social work in addition to being an attorney, and I've treated people for all different kinds of issues, social issues, as well as emotional issues. And I know, again, how important housing is. At the very bottom of this, you need to make sure you have a stable environment so that you can do all these other things to help people. So for them to be able to feel strong enough, we need to help strengthen them and make sure they have a place to live and feel safe. And I looked at the most recent, it was the Out of Reach report from the National Low Income Housing Coalition. The average household would have to earn $28.86 an hour to reasonably afford the median rent for a 2-bedroom unit. The median monthly rent for a 1-bedroom apartment was $1,226. Close to 43% of the state's more than 1.1 million renter households spend 35% or more of their income on rent and were considered house burden. This is terrible. A Superior Court judge determined about 2 years ago that the state requires about 155,000 more low-cost homes in order to meet the needs of our residents here in the state of New Jersey. We have a lot of work to do, and that's what I'm basically trying to say. I know we have a lot of work to do, but I promise you that I will be there and be able to help support in anything that you need to be able to strengthen all of our people here in the state of New Jersey. And what it does is, again, it strengthens our whole economy. It strengthens everybody. So just know that we're here. If you need anything, please come to me, come to Senator Gopal and Assemblyman Eric Hotelling. And in the 11th district, we're behind you, and we'll work as hard as we can to make sure that we take care of our people here. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak too.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. We appreciate it. I don't know if you can hear everybody, but everyone's visually clapping for you. We're going to ask everyone to stay on mute, but give you a big round of applause. We are really very, very grateful for your leadership, Senator Gopal's leadership, Assemblyman Hotelling's leadership on these issues. It's really, we have a lot of members in your district, which I know you know, but we appreciate your commitment to making sure that these issues are addressed. We are working feverishly to pass the People's Bill. We hope that Senator Gopal will join us as a sponsor on that legislation.
Yep.
We know that you, the Assemblyman, were instrumental in helping to get it through the Assembly, and work closely with the sponsor, with Assemblyman Timberlake, and the other 32 sponsors that shoehorned that through the Assembly. We need to get it through the Senate, and that will really take the pressure off of people to feel like they can't keep a roof over their head. That National Low Income Housing Coalition report is something we release every year, and every year with the NLIC, we sit down and we go through it, and every year I say, okay, how bad is it going to be this year? And while it got just slightly better for 2019, because that data is actually from last year, we know that next year it is going to be, I can't even imagine the depth of what that housing number is going to look like when it's going to,
Yeah.
The housing wage is about $27 an hour in the state of New Jersey. So unless you're making $27 an hour, which most people are not, it's really impossible for people to keep a roof over their head and contribute to the economy and participate in the economy. As Congressman Senator Wellstone used to say, everyone does better when everyone does better.
That's
And
right.
that is really the truth. When everyone is thriving and everyone is able to take care of themselves and their families, everybody else benefits from having that be the way that we live. So that's why we have called our campaign Build a Thriving New Jersey, because we believe that everybody should have the opportunity to thrive. And so we're really grateful to have you with us, not just today, but all the time.
Thank you. Thank you, Stacy. Thank you so much. It's great to be
thanks for
here with
being here.
everybody. Keep
You're
up the good
welcome.
work.
You're welcome to stay as long as you want, but we know you've got another meeting, so so we'll let you drop off whenever it's convenient for you. Thank you. We will certainly be back in touch when we have more legislative initiatives for you to work on us.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Next, Sharon, do we have a trivia question, or do we have Assemblywoman J.C. with us?
Assemblywoman J.C. is on.
Okay. She's just one of my favorite legislators. She's been with us from the time that she joined the Assembly. She has been one of the first people we turned to come to speak to you all in her role in the Housing and Community Development Committee, as well as on the Education Committee. She is the chair of the Higher Education Committee. She has oodles of constituents in attendance with us today, but she is always someone that we can count on, lean on for both solid and tremendous advocacy on behalf of these issues, and also on sage advice for how to navigate things. She was the I don't even know what word to use. She was she just was relentless in making sure that we got the land bank legislation through and signed last year, which seems like 400 million years ago that happened, but it was because it was pre-COVID, so it was like, in another lifetime. But Assemblywoman J.C. made sure that legislation came to fruition, got signed, and is being implemented. We would not be where we are today in New Jersey in terms of our housing and community development sector if it weren't for the Honorable Myla J.C., who represents Legislative District 27, which includes Essex and parts of Morris. Assemblywoman J.C., thanks for being with us.
Thank you. Am I muted or unmuted?
You are on. No, you're unmuted. We can hear you.
Well, thank you. I think you pretty much covered everything. What I want to say is that from day one in the Assembly, housing has been a critical issue for me, because where you live determines where your children go to school, and has everything to do with your health and well-being. And we here in New Jersey have not made the kind of progress that I feel we should have made by now. It's frustrating to me, and I know it's frustrating to the housing community, that A500 was signed how many years ago? 13, 14 years ago. And we thought we were on our way. And yet we've been stymied since then to really provide affordable housing, affordable, safe housing for all of our residents. And there's no reason why we can't do it. We have plenty of housing stock that, with a little bit of renovation and refurbishment, would be excellent places for people to live. So in terms of reaching real equity, we have to make sure that everyone has access to affordable, safe housing. There's really, I know I'm preaching to the choir, okay? And when I remind you that our schools are still the most segregated in the nation, and that our housing patterns is a major reason for this. And although we're a diverse state, we have concentrations of poverty and an acute shortage of housing that people can afford. And I like that phrase, people can afford, because my new district, which isn't so new anymore, it's like I'm 9 years into it, but in my new district, I have some very, very wealthy populations. And I was told, don't talk about affordable housing when you go to Morris County or you go to the western part of Essex County. But I do talk about housing that people can afford, because I think people understand that. We know that when people hear affordable housing, they think projects, and that's not what we're talking about. No one should be living in projects, all right? But everyone deserves housing that they can afford, whether it's to rent or to buy. And we know that buying a house is the single most important purchase that most families make. So until now, those looking for opportunities were reliant upon word of mouth or newspaper. When A 2626 S 2527 became law on July 1st, after being overwhelmingly supported by both houses, it now requires owners, developers, and property managers to post all affordable housing units, very low, low, and moderate, on the Housing Resource Center website portal maintained by HMFA, in addition to print. And this enables prospective purchasers to see what opportunities are available and register for affordable housing lotteries throughout the state. If an entity fails to comply by posting to the HRC portal, the lottery is deemed null and void and the entity is subject to fines. We expect and hope that this law will significantly expand housing opportunities for those most in need of it and provide the access that will lead to equity. More diverse neighborhoods leads to diverse schools, which means a better New Jersey for all. No? Yes. So I'm proud to have sponsored this legislation, and I'm grateful to all of the advocates who stood with me on this bill and on the housing measures that we've worked on together. I am a co-sponsor of the People's Bill, and I'm very excited also about the 35 million restoration to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So, I mean, we can talk about it more, but I'm preaching to the choir, and I want to thank Stacy and everyone else on this call for the work that you do every single day. I know that we can do it. And I believe that once we, the pandemic kind of set us back a little bit, but we have a governor that I believe supports the work that you're doing, and that we will move forward. So with that, I want to thank you for letting me have this time. And I want you all to know how much I appreciate the work you do every day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. We know that you have been just a tremendous leader on these issues, and that legislation to have a central point of access is really essential. I probably get 5 phone calls a week from people asking if I know where they can find an affordable apartment. And it's really, telling people they have to call HMFA and they have to call their state office, they have to call their, municipal office, and they could try their county. And then by the time they sort that out, all the apartments have been
Right.
sorted out in the lottery. So that is really going to be very, very helpful. And I believe that Katie Brennan, when she gets on from HMFA, is going to talk a little bit about that. I gave her sort of wide latitude to talk about whatever she wanted to talk about when she's on, but I'm sure she'll hit that topic because it's so important. So we appreciate your leadership there, your strong support for the People's Bill. I believe that Assemblywoman Timberlake is also on, and I firmly believe that with the two of you working on a bill, that really nothing can't happen. We really are, we are blessed to have such tremendous leaders and women leaders in the legislature who are making things happen. Governor Murphy's Deputy Chief of Staff, Deborah Cornabacca, was on earlier, and she reiterated the governor's commitment to restoring as much as possible in the Housing Trust Fund and continuing that. But when it was not, when we didn't have a governor who believed in that, when we didn't have a governor who believed in the land banking bill, when we didn't have a governor who believed in solving the foreclosure crisis and restoring, turning underutilized properties into places that can house people, Assemblywoman JC was always there to talk about what we could do, not what we couldn't do. And now that we have some opportunities to do those things, we are going to do everything we can to make those things happen as quickly as possible. So we're going to get to we're going to get to that legislation and make it happen because of the leadership of the folks of you and folks like you in the legislature.
Thank you so much, Stacy. And I would be remiss if I didn't invoke Chairman Green's name because, you know, he was a staunch advocate, and I know that he's watching what we're doing and is happy about it. So with that,
I feel that way too.
yeah, I know you do. I know you do. I would love to stay on, but I actually have a call with Congresswoman Cheryl now.
Well, please go do that. And thank you to your wonderful staff. Wish Mary a happy birthday from all of us. I don't think she's on,
I will.
But tell her we were thinking of her today.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Next, Assemblywoman J.C. mentioned Chairman Jerry Green. Chairman Green was the longstanding chairman of the Assembly Housing Committee. He passed away just a few years ago, but we are grateful to have with us now the next chairman of the committee, Assemblyman Benji Wimberly. Many of you heard him speak last year at our legislative day in Senate Room 6, and have also heard from him at his committees where he's heard many of the pieces of legislation that we have advocated for, and he's been a real champion of making sure that this legislation moves forward. So I want to turn the mic over to Assemblyman Chairman Wimberly. He represents District 35, which is Patterson in Passaic County, and he has more than about a half a dozen or so folks from your district right on here, and others joining us at a break. We don't have a breakout for the Assemblyman, right? It's just and that's going to be another time. It's really a pleasure to have you with us, Assemblyman Wimberly. Chairman Wimberly, thank you so much for being with us. We wanted to give you a few minutes to talk to the folks in the Housing and Community Development Network about what you see happening in the rest of the legislative session, and in particular in this shortened, unusual, but very important 9-month budget cycle.
Stacy, good morning. To all the advocates, I sincerely appreciate the work you're doing, and particularly in this time during the COVID-19 pandemic. I think, many of our shortcomings have been exposed when it comes to housing, affordability, and, the reality that we talk about day to day, that most people here in the United States are a paycheck away from being homeless and not being able to, put a roof over their house, head, and food on their table. I think the importance of housing and some of the bills that will be forthcoming, such as the People's Bill, A4034, and these are the things that we have to continue to fight and advocate for. And it makes a difference for everybody. And that's my point too, regardless of what your political affiliation is, regardless of your economic status, if we have a mass amount of people that are going to be homeless and struggling from day to day, it impacts everybody across the board. It impacts everybody. It impacts education. It impacts health. It's just such a situation that, when you just take for granted, So I will tell you this, that I will continue to fight for these bills. I will make sure that, the housing fund will remain in housing for the purpose that it's purpose of intent. I'm here, I'm all ears and open to the community and to the leaders in housing to work on bills. I know Assemblyman Bertucelli is working on a bill as we speak that hasn't been introduced yet, but will give some direct funds to homeowners and people that are renting, so those folks also don't fall behind in their mortgages and their payments that they have to do. So, I'm just excited to get back to work. And as you said, this is a little different to be in budget season in September. But, after 6 hours of listening to budget hearings yesterday, I kind of Zoom is a little different. But I'm here to fight for you. So know that whatever I could do, as Assemblywoman J.C. said, the work that Jerry Green did, Chairman Green, will not go in vain. We will continue to fight and lead that charge and making sure that we help those that are less fortunate, and not just when they talk about the middle class. We're helping those that are, below the poverty line. That's, my goal is to make sure that, we get people in situations that their lives become that much better when it comes to all the ills that they face in society. So, guys, I appreciate you, and I just look forward to working with you again, this session.
We're so grateful to have you with us, Chairman. That the bill that you referenced, Assemblyman Bertucelli's bill, is something we've heard a little bit about. We have we would like to learn a little bit more, I think, before we before we come on board. So we can definitely talk about that once we've seen the legislation, and we want to make sure that we continue to advocate for the People's Bill, because we believe that that is going to be the most fiscally responsible way to get people to stay in their homes. It is weird to be doing budget stuff during September. I know you'd rather just be, I'm sure you'd rather be playing football, watching the kids play, right? But it's really, it is a difficult time for everyone, and we are grateful to your leadership, and for your willingness to work with us on these important pieces of legislation. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys.
Thanks. You're welcome to stay as long as you want. I think that we'll do a follow-up Zoom with just your constituents on a different day, because your schedule, 6 or 8 hours of Zoom.
I was going to say we have 11 o'clock. I think I have another 11 o'clock Zoom.
I bet you do.
Yes.
I bet you do. I don't envy your schedule. Thank you so much, Chairman.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me.
You're more than welcome.
Right. Take care.
It's really, it's great to be able to bring to hundreds of you the tremendous leaders we have in the Assembly and in the Senate. And with us, we are thrilled to have the woman who has been really the people's champion. She has been just an absolute advocate of the highest order. She was the first person we gave our Housing and Community Development Housing Heroes Award to, because she deserved it. She is not from LD 10, though. That's a typo. She is from Legislative District 34, which represents partly Passaic and Essex County. And she is just a tremendous fighter for people to make sure that they can afford to stay in their homes. So it's my pleasure and honor to introduce Assemblywoman Brittany Timberlake. Assemblywoman, the first community developer elected to the legislature. It's good to have community developers in office.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I just miss seeing everybody's face. So it's nice to see it virtually. And I do miss when we're able to do this down in Trenton. It's one of the highlights of my year. And thank you so much, Stacy, for everything that you do. To the network, Stacy Berger is just a force of nature. And everyone in the legislature knows it. And I just really appreciate the friendship and the partnership that we've had, even in working on past things, such as getting the restoration to the Housing Trust Fund. But really also this People's Bill. It's major. And, you know, Stacy, you have been right there in lockstep, you know, Matt Hirsch and Arnold and Sharon Barker. I mean, just constantly, hi Sharon, just constantly there to make sure that we are getting something done. And by something, I mean what I believe is tremendous legislation that is absolutely needed. You know, the governor did his, hey Bernadette, I see you shouting me out, how are you? The governor did his, what I call a readdress of his rebudget address. And he called during his rebudget address because of COVID-19. As you know, he already did a budget address in the beginning of the year, but the pandemic, you know, the whole budget is just different now. And our priorities have shifted. And COVID-19 has exposed so much that we have been saying for many, many years about inequities in our society. So there was one bill, and one bill only, that the governor called to make it to his desk and challenged the legislature to get to him. And that was the People's Bill. And the Housing and Community Development Network has been lockstep from the very beginning, from while we were drafting it prior to even introducing it. And it's just, it really is, I can't tell you how much I appreciate our friendship and our partnership. We have to get this bill done. Right now, it's being held up in the Senate. We did pass it in the Assembly. And I want to shout out Speaker Craig Coughlin, who has showed amazing leadership through this entire process. He has extremely and he put that bill up for a vote, which was amazing. It passed by only about 7 votes. Okay, there are corporate landlords that are lobbying hard against the People's Bill from passing. What is the People's Bill, real quick, just for those who may not know what it is on this line, although I can't imagine that anybody involved in the network hasn't heard about what the People's Bill is. It is a piece of legislation that will create fairness and prevent a tsunami of homelessness from coming. There are already about 20,000 pre-evictions already filed, just waiting for the governor's protections to lift, the state of public health emergency to lift. And as soon as it does, there are people that are going to be evicted and put out on the street. We have some banks who are doing the right thing. Let's talk about homeowners. That was renters. Let's talk about homeowners. We have some banks who are doing the right thing. I saw Bernadette Mueller from Valley National Bank. Shout out to you all, because you are offering fair mortgage forbearances. You are offering that people have an opportunity to put the money that they owe on the back end, and not requiring people to pay everything on the 91st day, which is going to force people into foreclosure if that's what some banks are doing, and unfortunately some banks are. The People's Bill lays out what a fair mortgage forbearance should look like. The People's Bill lays out what an affordable rent repayment plan should look like. It is fair to the landlords, it is fair to the banks, it is fair to the renters, and it is fair for the homeowners. It makes sure that everybody receives their money over time, and that people are not displaced because of hardship that is outside of their control. And that we are providing what is truly the bedrock, pun intended, of what our society is. How the hell can we be talking about digital divides and learning from home and really truly giving people the option when their parents are facing a foreclosure or a rental eviction? How can we seriously be talking about those things? We must first make sure that the household, which has now also become our schools, is secure, and that people have an opportunity to keep a roof over their head. So I just want to thank everyone so much for all of your support in that. I know that the ask is, and there has been discussions happening in the Senate, that they want to scrap the bill and completely do something different, something similar to what's been done in other places, but it doesn't work in New Jersey. We're asking that the People's Bill get done. We're asking that people stand, and legislators stand against the apartment association, who has been using fear tactics and downright scapegoating and telling lies, trying to make homeowners think that this is going to hurt them, trying to make landlords think that this is going to hurt them. No, this is a better way to ensure that landlords actually get the money that they're owed over time, because if not, good luck to collecting rent from someone who is now homeless after eviction because of COVID-19. This is an opportunity to make sure that all boats rise and that everyone receives their money over time, as well as receives affordable opportunity to keep their roof over their head. So I just want to thank you, I can't say it enough, for the partnership. And shout out to Assemblywoman Myla Jacey and Housing Chairperson Benji Wimberly, who spoke prior to. I stand on their shoulders. It's an has been softened by those legislators. And I just want to say thank you to all of the other sponsors of the bill too, co-sponsors and main sponsors, Assemblywoman Angela McKnight and Shanique Spates, and also Senator Troy Singleton in the Senate. So thank you.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. We are committed to making sure that the People's Bill gets to the floor of the Senate and that it passes. We have heard from so many people about the connection, and you've spoken about it, between not just COVID, but also health and housing in general. And the pandemic has laid bare those contradictions where people don't have a safe, affordable place to live. They're trying to, school their children and keep their families safe, and they can't afford to keep a roof over their head. It is putting people in an untenable position. There was an article over the weekend in the failing New York Times about people going to see the dentist because their teeth are cracking from grinding, from sleeping poorly, because they're so stressed out. We know that the rate of mental health and suicide issues are up. It's National Suicide Prevention Month. We know that those issues are, that the issues we're facing are absolutely having a health impact on everyone who is facing housing insecurity. And so we are going to launch a Drive to Survive on next Thursday between 12:30 and 2:30. We're going to organize a car caravan to show support for the People's Bill. It is the next time the Senate is in session. We are going to go to our office, which we haven't been to in 6 months, and make sure that people can meet there and organize themselves safely in a socially distant and responsible way. But we want the Senate and Senate President Sweeney and the leadership of the Senate, some of whom I think are either with us now or have been and will continue to be with us this morning, know that this bill matters deeply, deeply to our constituents, to their constituents, to our members, to our wider community. We need them to hear from us that this bill is essential to the health and well-being of our entire state. And so we are going to put some pressure on the folks who have the ability to make this decision. California is California. This is New Jersey. We have a New Jersey bill that is a great piece has a great opportunity to be the leader in the country for this issue. And so we're not letting this go. We're going to drive to survive and push to thrive. So we appreciate you being with us. I think that there are some folks from your district who are going to check in with you on a different day because we know you are super busy, not only doing all of this, but also being a mom. You are an amazing, amazing individual and a hero to so many of us. So thank you for being with us today and for all of your tremendous leadership.
Thank you, Stacy, and likewise. And I'm inspired by each and every single one of you every single day. I come from you. You all raised me up. This is what we have to do. If I make it to the legislature, of course, I'm going to carry our banner and fly it.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you soon. We'll see you next year. Welcome to join us next Thursday. I think Drew put the link in the chat for anybody who wants to check out the Drive to Survive. It's going to be co-sponsored by the network, Ironbound Community Corporation, New Jersey Organizing Project, Fair Share Housing, I think, Citizen Action, and everybody who's part of the Compassionate New Jersey Coalition, which is being coordinated by those organizations and a few more. So we'll keep you all posted. We'll keep you posted on that, Assemblywoman, and to everyone else who's on the Zoom, we'll keep you updated about that event. Thank you so much for being with us and for everything you're doing.
Thank you. Of course, and shout out to all those organizations you just mentioned. They're the core 5 of 150 organizations in support of the bill. Can't do what we do without you. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Assemblywoman. Sharon, I have sort of lost track of the agenda at this point, which is bound to happen when you have a lot. Oh, great. Thank you, Nina. Sharon is muted, but I can almost read her mind. And at this point, Nina can actually read my mind. It's a little scary. I have been known to drive, back when we used to drive to our office, I used to drive to the office and say, I have to ask Nina something, and I'd walk in the door and she'd have already thought of it. So as you can see, she's a step ahead of us. Assemblyman Calabrese was also with us last year at our first, I think it was your first legislative day with us at the State House, and it was great to have you with us last year, and we're thrilled to have you with us again. We apologize, you are not from Legislative District 10. There was someone from Legislative District 10, and they are getting all the slides. But as I said in the outset of this event, we're going to roll with the punches, and we know that with Zoom things happen, and as long as everybody is able to be with us and healthy and safe, we are really grateful to have you with us. So I'm going to ask you to say a few words to the group and to talk about what you see as the housing and community development issues. Representative Assemblyman Calabrese represents Ridgefield and Bergen County. He's LD 36. Not LD 10, but that's okay. And he's a member of the Assembly Housing Committee, and he was a sponsor, a supporter of the People's Bill when it passed the Assembly.
Thank you very much, Stacy, and thanks for organizing this. Don't worry about mixing up the numbers. No one really knows the legislative districts anyways. So that's fine by me. But I appreciate everybody on this call and taking the time today. My name is Calabrese. I'm the newest member to the Housing Committee. I was put on only in the beginning of this year, so still very new for me, but learning a lot along the way. And I'm a huge supporter of...
We're having a little trouble hearing you. I'm not sure if you want to get closer to the mic, maybe, or if you have a headset. It's just there's like a lag a little bit. We're gonna do the best we can, so don't worry about it too much. But if you can get...
All right. Is that better? Okay. I'm a member to the housing committee and been learning a lot. Huge advocate for more housing, more affordable housing. I learned a lot from the People's Bill and also from listening and talking about JC and Julie, who, you know, they've been on the committee much longer than I have. So I learn a lot from the people who have come before me. There's actually an initiative that I'm taking up right now that's, you guys don't know about it because I've been doing it on the low. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to collecting a lot of data, a lot of parking data across the state of New Jersey. And one of the things that prohibits growth is the onerous parking requirements that are put on people to build certain things. Can you hear me?
It's all very
it's a-
choppy. It's almost like you're underwater. So I think it's just a bad connection.
I can hear every other word, but we're getting the gist that you're looking to listen to people who've experienced affordable housing issues, and you want to make sure that you're having the opportunity to learn from them. You're the newest member of the housing committee. You might want to turn off your video. A few folks have suggested turning off the video because that way your bandwidth goes right to the audio. So if you want to give that a go, we can throw that slide up and people will still be able to see your picture.
Yep.
And if we can't, we'll put up the slide with you and then we can hear you. So we can try that for a minute if you want.
Okay, how are we doing now?
Much better.
All right. So the initiative that I'm taking up is that I'm looking to gather a lot of data on real-time parking demand. And so what happens is in today's world in New Jersey, if you want to build something, you have to comply with parking restricted for people to build things. So another way to combat affordable housing is to be able to build more units and to then make sure that a portion of those units are affordable. Right? So now if you build a one bedroom or a unit, now I'm under good access to the next transit. There's really no need for someone to build space for one unit, right? Which is called space. So it becomes prohibitive. Now, if we're able to reduce the park,
I think we're still having a little trouble. Why don't we do this? Why don't we see if we can get you on our next member call, which is just audio, and then we'll potentially put together a meeting with myself and Matt and Arnold and some of our members in your district, and we can talk about how best to collect that data so we can help you analyze the best ways to address to address parking needs as a reason for people to not build affordable homes, which we understand is something that comes up all the time, but shouldn't actually impact the ability of folks to have a safe, affordable place to live. So we're happy to work with you on that and to make sure that we can get you that data. We may have some of it, or we may be able to pull it with some of our partners. I'm thinking maybe New Jersey Future. I just like to volunteer them, even though they're not here to defend themselves. They might be here. I've lost track of how many folks are on, but we can probably help you get that data, and we can set up a time to connect when maybe the internet is being more cooperative. It's been really difficult for folks, especially in places where the internet is not as strong. So I don't want to make you suffer through trying to make the glitches unglitch, but we appreciate your leadership and your commitment to these issues, and we will absolutely work with you to get that data and get that set up. Thanks, Matt. I saw your comments, and we can follow up right away with the assemblyman to make sure that we have an opportunity that is technologically adequate for him to communicate with everybody, and certainly put him back online at the earliest convenience. Sharon, do we have the next set of speakers, or do you want to do a trivia question real quick?
Actually, we have several speakers
Okay.
holding,
I
so we'll
can't.
just keep them moving.
Okay.
So that's right. We have Senator Cryan is next.
Great. Senator Cryan, thank you so much for being with us. It's been a minute since we've seen anybody in person, and this is as close as we could get to our 125 or so folks in the State House roaming around in our maroon t-shirts. You've always been gracious about meeting with our members, both when you were in the Assembly and since you've joined the Senate. It's really great to have you with us. We know that you've probably heard some of what we've talked about. We sincerely hope that you join your colleagues in sponsoring the People's Bill and helping us to advocate for legislation that will make sure people can stay in their homes during this really unprecedented time where housing really actually is health. So we want to give you a few minutes to speak to the group at large. I don't know if there's a breakout group for Senator Cryan later, but for those of you who aren't familiar, Senator Cryan is from Union County, where Sharon is from, and we have a lot of folks from Union County on with us today. So we're going to turn it over to you, Senator Cryan.
I wonder if we lost him there for a second. He was on.
Well, we predicted in the beginning that this was going to be a little haywire. So what we'll do is see if we can get Senator Cryan back on. But in the meantime, maybe we could ask Senate Majority Leader Weinberg to join us.
Mm-hmm. She is on the call as well.
Great. Senator Loretta Weinberg is also from Bergen County, not LD 10, but LD, I believe 37, if I'm not mistaken. Senator Weinberg has been a champion of a whole host of progressive issues in her tenure as an assemblywoman, and then as a senator and as Senate Majority Leader. She has been someone we go to for help and advice and leadership, and we're really thrilled to have her with us today. She is a fighter and an advocate and a friend of ours, and so we're really just glad to have Senator Weinberg with us today to talk about housing and health and what she sees as the future of the People's Bill. We would hope to have that come up and pass soon. So Senator Weinberg, take it away.
Yes. Good morning, Stacy. Thank you for arranging this. Welcome to fall. Apparently, that happened overnight.
It's crazy.
There are so many issues around affordable housing, and I know that you and most of the advocates, pardon me, are focused on the pandemic and on keeping people in their homes, forestalling evictions. But for instance, yesterday I had a long conference call with legal services in terms of what their budget is going to be, because they anticipate when the courts reopen, there is going to be a tsunami, as they described it, of eviction notices going out that will be brought before the judiciary. That's one issue. I've been dealing with the other issues that many of us are concentrating on: lead in water pipes and lead in paint in our housing. The lead paint issue goes back in my legislative career from the time I was in the Assembly. So I only bring those up because it is such a wide variety of issues that affect the ability of our state to provide the proper environment for all of our residents. So I will continue to be fighting to enable people to not be thrown out on the street, to take into consideration in all our legislation over the next few months the effect of COVID-19 on our population. And I believe our House has already voted on this bill. We're waiting for it to come back from the Assembly after amendments, I'm guessing. So we have a little work to do here, and I will continue to be there supporting all of you. Your advocacy can't stop. we need your voices, and we need your help in keeping the spotlight on. So thanks for putting this together, and I'll be there alongside each and every one of you.
I'm still on mute. I did it. It was my turn to keep talking while I was on mute. We really appreciate it, Senator. The People's Bill would help solve that eviction tsunami and really prevent people who can pay back over time from being evicted instead of having to pay back all at once. Having tens of thousands of people evicted all at once is bad for them. It's bad for their neighborhood. It's bad for the landlords, and it's bad for our economy. And so I believe that the bill is back in the Senate. And is waiting for a vote. And so I'm not sure if you were on before when we talked about we're going to have a car caravan to encourage the Senate to put that vote up next Thursday. We're going to drive around. There's so many health impacts that we're hearing from people about how unhealthy the housing crisis in conjunction with COVID is making them, that we really need to make sure that the Senate and the senators who are not as not as supportive as you yet know that this is really a question of survival for so many people. Our shelter system simply couldn't handle 50,000 evictions. Our housing market can't handle 50,000 evictions, and nobody should be evicted because they were trying to do the right thing and stay home like the governor ordered. So we owe it to our families and our neighbors and ourselves to stand up for everyone who can't afford to pay their rent or mortgage in a lump sum right now. And so we'll be following up with you directly to see what you think the best course of action is, because we respect and believe in your leadership, and I personally would love your advice on the best way to move forward on this. So we appreciate everything that you've done and everything that you continue to do, and look forward to continuing to work with you. So thank you so much for being with us today. I know you've got like so many other folks, a super busy schedule. Every day must be a long day of Zoom for you. So we won't keep you.
A long day of Zoom meetings, a new electric dryer coming in because the old one finally broke, our daughter arriving from California, and in between a meeting with some constituents. But
so
Stacey,
ice cream for breakfast for somebody in your family, maybe? You're going to have some of that happening?
Stacey, let me just say, you're a strong woman, and you are helping untold thousands of people. So keep it up. Keep your voice clear and strong. And I'll be along.
That's all we can do.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Senator. Good luck with the dryer.
Bye-bye.
Can I say hi to Loretta? Hi, Loretta.
Sure. Who is that?
Okay.
I think
that was Valerie. I just jumped on.
Oh, Valerie is not only on, but today's her birthday.
Get out. Happy birthday, Assemblywoman.
Oh, shush.
Hey, Valerie, this is some way to celebrate.
Thank you,
Loretta. Valerie?
We should say happy birthday. Yes.
Yeah, I said this is some way to celebrate.
Oh, and Assemblywoman Pinkham is on also. So we've got quite a few legislators with us. So we will we want to make sure that you all get an opportunity to say a few words. Thank you so much, Senator. Good luck with your day today and with your family coming in. Happy New Year. Lasana Tova.
Thank you very much. Thanks. We'll all be doing our services on Zoom too. So thanks. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye. We're going to, I think because it's her birthday, we're going to go right over to Assemblywoman Valerie Veneri Huddle, who's the chairwoman of the Assembly Health Committee.
Thanks, Stacey.
Thank you.
I just wanted to jump in there because I miss Loretta, because I'm used to seeing her constantly, except we only now see each other through Zoom. So I just wanted to give a big shout out.
I understand.
But thank you. Thank you. And I don't know how many years I've been coming down to Lobby Day live in the State House. As always, we come in, we sort of like we're cheerleaders for housing. And, unfortunately this year, our world is turned upside down with COVID. Everything that we've always fought for has been exacerbated with the issues of COVID. And I think that I didn't hear Loretta's entire remarks, but I can tell you that District 37 and around the state, we have been dealing with residents who have been struggling to make ends meet, even more so unemployment benefits, families worry that they can't stay in their homes. And even though we've always speak about these realities, they're not new, but I think that we're experiencing a lot more than we ever did. So just a couple of pieces of legislation that I'm hoping to talk about very quickly, and then we can go for, I don't know what the format is, but Arnold, it's always great to see you as well. And it's nice to see everybody. I have a small screen, so I only see 9 people, but I think there are more on. A couple of issues that we're dealing with, A4457, that would establish a tax credit for constructing and renovating homes with universal design principles. And this is to incentivize the growth of accessible housing in the state. And then there's A4458, which would require new constructed buildings to meet universal design principles. And I think, again, it's all about accessibility and tax credits and affordability. A couple of more in addition, as you mentioned, Stacy, as chair of Aging and Senior Services, we certainly have a senior housing crisis. And again, I think that as our aging population ages, we should have the ability, obviously, to age in place with dignity. And it certainly starts with affordable housing. And so on that senior housing and affordability, I have a piece of legislation, A3662, which would increase the annual property tax deduction for seniors and disabled people from $250 to $500. And additionally, it would increase the annual income limitation for individuals to qualify for senior and disabled citizens' property tax deduction to $15,000, allowing for more individuals to become eligible. So there's no question that we need to do more. And, I'm speaking to the choir as always, but without your strong advocacy, and I have my allergies today, so it's funny when I'm sneezing, everyone's staying far away. I said, no, it's allergies. But without your strong advocacy, we could not do this. And every time, if there's a piece of legislation and we have your support, I always say it's like the gold seal. And so we keep working with you and the advocates. And I know that, we've had several meetings in the past when it comes to, at-risk individuals, homeless individuals, during weather-related issues, and we've done legislation to address that. So I'm hoping that together, we can all come together and hopefully have more accessible and affordable housing, not only for our families, but for our senior population as well.
Still on mute. Thank you so much, Assemblywoman. We understand the allergy thing worse than
I'm
I
sorry.
understand. No, it happens. Listen, as long as that's all
It's
it is,
terrible
we're grateful.
today.
It's bad. I thought it was just me, but it's all everyone. We appreciate your leadership, your friendship, and we're grateful to have you in the role that you're in, and know that we can count on you to help us move these bills through. So we are really
thank you.
forward to being with you in person again next year. But we're making the best of it as we can here.
You're doing a great job.
Thank you. We will certainly call on you when we have additional legislation, and we will work on those bills that you just named. I'm sure Matt
absolutely
taking down all those bill numbers, and we will be able, to be in support after we if we haven't already vocally supported them, we will absolutely take a minute to review them and get.
Thank you, Stacey.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your day. Happy birthday.
Happy to everybody too.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care.
Next,
Sharon,
we want to.
This is Mike McNeil. I have to leave, but I want to thank you. Very good program. Very, very good. I was under somebody else's name. That's probably why you didn't see me.
Thanks, Mike.
Yes.
And there we go. There's your camera. Mike's Zoom is up here. For those of you who aren't familiar, Mike is the state NAACP housing chair and
hi everybody.
Runs to end poverty soon. We would love to do introductions for everybody, but we're actually running about 15 minutes behind, and we've got a couple of legislators who've been super patient. So we're going to ask them to go, and we wish Mike. Sorry you have to leave, but we're glad you could be with us. It's nice to see your face finally after a really long time. It's so good to see everyone. I miss all of you terribly. So I want to turn now to Assemblywoman Pinkin, who is next door to me here in Middlesex County, and ask her to say a few words. Thank you for your patience, Assemblywoman. We know that you've been with us for a little bit here listening to the conversation, and we're really grateful for your time today. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Okay,
We can hear you.
Yeah, I was just seeing that big screen just with my name on it, but it's great to be here. Thank you for having me. I have, my background is really healthcare, and I've spent most of my time, and I'm chair of the Environment Committee. So I also serve on law and public safety. But before I was in the legislature, I was an advocate for about 20 years for various healthcare groups. And my point today is really not about any particular legislation, but just on the advocacy. And, there are over 10,000 bills that come through in a legislative session. So while everybody thinks, well, everybody is focused on the issues that you're working on, there are so many issues. And housing is probably, I think, one of the most complicated issues. There's technical bills. With the Timberlake bill, the issue was, well, how did the landlords, what about their property rights, and how did they get paid? Now, it turned out in the end, there was a lot of struggle over that. Not that people didn't support housing, but that there had to be some recourse for that. And that was solved with a pot of money, but that was a difficult challenge. So, can never assume that everybody knows your issues. It's so important to make a call to your legislator and, have a conversation, and also to be a resource, because it is complicated. You have to explain the sides. It might seem obvious to you because you've been working on it so long, but so many times it's not obvious. The last 2 weeks I've spent, and Rob Zuckerman, my chief of staff, who's on also, spent like hours and hours, probably every day for multiple days, trying to deal with 2 constituent cases that had housing issues. They started out with health issues, they were in the hospital, and then, okay, now where did they get discharged to? And people say, well, what's the problem? But you can imagine so many times when, whether it's mental health services, I worked with Arnold Cohen for many years through the Psychiatric Rehabilitation Association, but how do you solve that? And sometimes we're paying for people to be in the hospital or to be in a long-term care facility, rehab, something like that, and there's literally nowhere to send somebody. And while they're in that situation, they're destabilizing, because it's not a great situation to be parked in the emergency room for like a week at a time when you have mental health issues, or you're autistic, or have some other disability. So these things are so challenging and so complicated, and added by the fact that sometimes with housing issues, you have to deal with the individual issues where maybe they don't want to help themselves, or they're at a point where you're trying to help them, they don't want to have help, and then another crisis happens, and then you're trying to help them again. And so it's difficult to get all of that to line up at the same time. There was a doctor, Arnold, doctor who got the Genius Award, right, for coming up with this idea of keeping people out of the emergency room. But I was always saying, in all due respect to him, it wasn't really a Genius Award. It was the Common Sense Award, right? Because we frequently set up structures that are dealing with a problem, but yet we can't solve them, but we're spending so much more money than if we solve the initial problem. And that's always the dilemma we face in health and human services. And even in, New Jersey is the most densely populated state in the country. So I think one of the housing problems is we keep talking about building new housing, building affordable housing, where sometimes we need to relook at, ways that we can utilize the existing housing that we have. If I go door to door when I'm campaigning, I see so many apartments or condos in foreclosure, and they're standing there vacant, and yet we can't put somebody in them. So we have to be able to think outside the box and see what we can do to utilize our resources. We have a $10 billion deficit, and we have to be efficient. We have to look at what ways we can work on these things. And I know you've been working on it for so many years. When I was in leadership in New Jersey, we worked on the housing credits, right? And the housing credits, that was thought to be a great idea. We'll pay an urban area, city like Plainfield, we'll pay them money for the towns to sell their affordable housing needs to them, and they'll get revenue. And then you're clustering people in an area, which increases the needs of that town and puts them further into poverty. So these are all extremely complicated things, but I appreciate your advocacy. And I know it's so difficult right now to deal with the incredible, overwhelming need that we have. I have to say that our staff have been working like night and day on unemployment and all of those constituent needs. You know, on my staff, I have 2 people. So it's not like we have an army out there, just like, you know, you're dealing with the nonprofits. And by the way, those people that are in Middlesex County, if you are a nonprofit, there is some federal funding from the government for you to apply for your own organization. Call the county or call our office. We're happy to help you with that. So I don't want to keep you all day, but that's my...
We're here all day. There are members of other legislators here with us too, but we appreciate you so much being with us, Assemblywoman, and for your thoughtful, you know, participation in all of these issues. Healthcare and housing and the well-being of our residents are absolutely connected, and we know that health is housing and housing is health, and it's never been more obvious than it has been during the pandemic. And so we appreciate your commitment to those issues, your support for the People's Bill when it was in the Assembly, and we look forward to seeing what you do next. We know that you may have some changes coming in your your office, but we are glad to have had you with us today and to really have your thoughts and comments on this legislation. So we on the People's Bill in particular, but also the general need for people to have a safe, affordable place to call home. The residential transformation bill is something that's been in the legislature for a long time, and that would really address that issue that you were talking about when you go door to door and you see vacant and foreclosed homes and nobody living in them. It seems like a mismatch, right? We have homeless people and we have people as homes, and if it shouldn't take rocket science, it is common sense that those 2 things could be put together to make sure that everyone has a safe place to live.
So many legislators resist the idea of having to build new housing. And, you know, when you're the most densely populated state, you can understand that, but why do we not use what we already have? So it's a very important issue.
Right, and part of that is that they're not actually resisting the building of new homes, right? They're resisting changing who lives in their communities and
sometimes
making,
yeah
sometimes, I mean, that's
sure. Listen, we
not all of them, but some
honestly, you know, home rule is a challenge, whether we're talking about education or we're talking about funding and the money that we're spending on every little town having every little, you know, library, fire department, whatever. That's money that we can't use for other things. So it's important to address that. One last little thing I'll throw in: catastrophic illness fund. A lot of people don't know about it. It's a fund for children who a lot of times it helps with housing issues where if they have a need, they're trying to stay in a house, they're now disabled, they need a van, or they need adjustment to their house, a structure, their apartment, to be able to adapt to illness changes. Always feel free to reach out for that resource. There is money there, but a lot of people don't know about that fund. So
great. We'll post those links and share them with the folks on the Zoom later on. Thank you so much, Assemblywoman. Thanks to you and your staff.
Have a great day.
The host muted me. I'm getting a little note that says the host muted me. Next, I want to turn to Dean Dafis from the Department of Community Affairs. Is that right, Sharon? Oh, you're muted. You muted yourself.
Dean is very nice about saying that he will wait since we have Assemblyman Zwicker.
Okay. Oh, Assemblyman Zwicker is with us. Great.
Yes.
There's a lot of little Middlesex folks on today, which is great for those of us from Middlesex. Woohoo! It's good to see you again, Assemblyman. It's great to see you at the budget address. We wanted to welcome you with us today. Assemblyman Zwicker is the chair of the Science, Innovation, and Technology Committee. He represents South Brunswick and LD 16, which is southern Middlesex County, and I think a teeny tiny bit of Mercer County. So we've got a couple other folks with us, but we want to turn it over now to Assemblyman Zwicker. Thanks for being with us.
Well, thank you, Stacy, and thanks for a couple minutes to everybody. Thank you for your tremendous advocacy. And like our other speakers, of course, you know, it's hard to ever get used to having these sort of get-togethers on Zoom. It is, of course, the reality of the situation right now. You know, I've heard, starting with Senator Weinberg, some of the discussion about the enormous pressure, economic pressure that so many of our residents are under. And of course, housing is intimately tied to that. I just want to shift the conversation for a moment during my brief time to talk a bit about what happens post-COVID when it comes to housing, because affordable housing in New Jersey, we all know, you know better than anybody, was an enormous issue pre-COVID. We're dealing with COVID right now, but there will be a post-COVID world someday, hopefully someday soon. You know, you heard from Stacy, I'm the chair of the science committee, so I can't help myself but say that the relentless attacks on science out of the White House will hopefully in 49 days come to an end. And with that, the relentless attack on simple facts when it comes to both environmental protection, the burden on so many of our low-income communities, and the housing and segregation of housing that we see here in New Jersey. So, you know as better than anyone that given New Jersey's high housing costs, given the fact that upwards of 3/4 of our residents are spending 50% of their income or more on housing, and that it disproportionately affects Black and brown communities, that it disproportionately housing has such an impact on our lower income people. I think one of the things that I don't want to say most interested in, but part where I am at least focused is in what do we do post-COVID, right? And staying away from Mount Laurel and staying away from all the various political realities, what are other states doing? And in particular, how are states starting to change zoning laws? To Stacy, you mentioned unused housing. There's also the idea, you know, we can talk about unused housing, we could repurpose housing, and we could also talk about zoning laws as a way to take the same amount of land and in suburban areas, and I represent all suburban areas, just to be clear, in the center part of the state, how can we start to look at the possibilities now of changing zoning laws to, using the same space, start to create more housing, and by definition, start to, by increasing the housing stock, increase the affordability of housing, and to allow people to live where they want to work. And in my particular district, housing is, for the most part, very expensive. And so Oregon, California in particular, have been real leaders in how to start to do changes in zoning laws. And so my focus, recently I put together a working group around what are other states doing, and then trying to tie that, as someone Pinkin talked about home rule, we've got Mount Laurel. I mean, there's obviously a lot of things that have to be meshed together, but it seems to me that while we deal with the crisis in front of us, we've got to start to come up with strategies for long-term affordable housing throughout the entire state, whether that's in our cities, our suburbs, down in the rural areas in the South, et cetera. So that's where my focus has been. I'm continuing to work on that piece. I need your expertise, your advocacy, your networks to continue to push this through. And I just want to say thank you for a couple minutes to talk today with you, and thank you for what you're doing. I mean, you change people's lives and you make people's lives better, and that cannot be overstated. So thank you.
Still on mute. Thank you, Assemblyman Zwicker, and thank you for helping us to think about what's going to happen after COVID. It seems impossible to think that we never thought we'd be here, so sometimes it feels like we might never get out, but it's good to know that folks who believe in science believe that that's possible, and we look forward to the day when we can all be together and have conversations about ways that we can utilize zoning to make sure that everyone has a safe, affordable place to live. And we are open and willing to talk about ways to develop ADUs and other other zoning opportunities for people to assist in I'm going to blank on what ADUs stand for, so I'm going back to the chat. But they're, you know, they're multifamily in smaller places, and there's lots of opportunities and ways to have these conversations, and we need to be doing that. So we will continue accessory dwelling units. Thanks, Dean. Dean always has my back. Dean Davis, ladies and gentlemen, the most patient man on the Zoom. He's been waiting for a while. We're gonna get to him soon. Thank you so much, Assemblyman Zwicker. It's really great to have you with us, and we look forward to talking with you again. And
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for a couple minutes.
thank you. Next up, we have Assemblywoman Verlina Reynolds Jackson, one of the champions of the People's Bill, among others. She just had her legislation to make Juneteenth a state holiday signed into law on Instagram. For those of you, unlike me, who know how Instagram works, you could have seen the governor sign that live on last Friday. Assemblywoman Verlina Reynolds Jackson has been a friend of the network since she was a city council member in the city of Trenton, and met with me, I think it was like week 2, when I started as the executive director of the network, and we talked about the abandoned properties ordinance and how she could help the city of Trenton take some of its underutilized housing stock and make it be available to people who needed homes in the city, needed affordable homes. So she has really been a champion of these issues for a very long time, and is a good friend of ours at the network, and we're thrilled to have her with us. For those of you that are in her district and going to the breakout meeting, we know that some of you are signing into that now. We asked her just to say a few words to the large group, and then she's going to go talk to all of you who are her constituents in the Zoom room. However that happens, I hope nobody asks me, because I don't actually know how that happens. But Assemblywoman Reynolds Jackson, we're going to turn that over to you for a few minutes. Thanks for being with you, and thanks to your staff, especially Ed Giddens, for all of his flexibility and cooperation today.
Am I unmuted? All right. So I wanted to say congratulations to the network on putting together this Zoom. So yesterday I was on probably the longest Zoom budget meeting of my life, but it was very good. I can't tell you how thrilled I am to serve on the budget committee. It is a wealth of knowledge and information, and I'm just like a sponge. It's just so much, you know, sometimes at the end, my brain feels like it's going to explode, but I would rather be in no other place than there. With that being said, I do have a couple of acts that I'm going to ask to the larger group before we go off into our smaller group. You know, I'm very, very passionate about the census. I've been talking about this since last year, and we have 15 days to go. So please, please, please fill out your census. It helps us with our funding dollars on the federal level that trickles down to the state level. And I tell you, when you don't fill it out, you are literally throwing money away. So I am assuming that everyone has. I know even me, it took me a couple of, it shouldn't have, but it did. It took me a couple of weeks to fill out my census form, and then I finally did it. But now I can say I am a part of that number. And so I'm encouraging everyone to talk to your friends and family about it. The second thing I would like everyone to do, New Jersey, the Department of the State Secretary of State has done a phenomenal job at putting out a new app called New Jersey Election. And you can go to this app and get all the information you need about this, not only this election, but we're special in New Jersey because we have one every 6 months, but it's an app. And you can put it's for Android and it's for iPhones. And so you can download the app, you can get all of this information. And again, it's another tool to make sure that we are connected to our local, and it'll alert you also about other information that comes up throughout the year. The other thing I wanted to talk about is lead. Lead. And I know I heard some earlier conversations about new stock and why can't we use old stock? And lead is a big part of the problem. And as you know, lead is very, very harmful to children. It causes all types of defects, brain, nerve, behavioral, cognitive functions. And, you know, initially in the original FY20 budget, there was $150 million for lead prevention. It's no longer there. So as we move forward, I think this is something that I know I'm going to be working on. I know that the network is probably taking a look at as well, but we have to continue to combat this lead issue. Some towns have the ability to build new, and some towns only have the ability to rehab. But in that rehabilitation, we need to make sure that we're getting rid of the lead. And I think we should even take it a step further, Stacy, and I know I'm digging myself in a little bit of a hole here, but not just to test and say that we have it, but to test and remediate, right? I mean, what's good to know if you have it and then you don't do anything about it? So I think it's twofold. That is would be very good for our stock that's already there, and using existing buildings. And you know, we can go on and on and on about some other stuff, but I just really wanted to make sure I gave those 3 plugs to everything, to the larger group. And like you said, somebody's going to work some magic and get us into those to my LD15 crew. And I have another ask of you all. And I thank you tremendously for all your support. Thank you, Stacy, for everything that you're doing out here, not for the state of New Jersey, but other states are looking at us as well. And I think this network is an absolute model for everybody else to use. So thank you again, and I appreciate you. Uh-oh, did you freeze? Now I can keep on talking.
I think Stacy did freeze, but it's Sharon speaking. And I just wanted to thank you. Hi, it's so nice to see your face. We're so glad you're with us today. And I know you're going into a breakout group. So we have a bunch of people excited to talk with you this morning as well. And we're so glad you were with us. And, you know, I'm one of those people that back in the 80s, I went to that meeting at the Robert Treat Hotel when we were going to get rid of lead paint in the state of New Jersey. And we're still dealing with this. So thank you for making sure it's front and center and on top of everybody's agenda. We so appreciate you being with us today. And I know everybody that's breaking out into your breakout group, they are ready to go to the other Zoom meeting. So we thank you, and we will be in touch with you again real soon.
So I have to Zoom, I have to log off and then log back on, right?
Yes, there was a separate Zoom sent to you and to Ed.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank
Talk
you.
to you all soon.
Take
Bye
care.
now.
Bye. So with that, I am going to turn this over to Dean Davis. Nina, you want to switch the slide here for us? And get Dean, and he is unmuted. So that is not Dean. And that is also not Dean, but we're getting there because we went out of order as people popped on. We were trying to make sure that we were able to take care of everyone as they came on. So there he is. There's his face. Dean is from the Division of Housing and Community Resources, and he's also in the, he is also the person handling all of the homelessness prevention work for DCA. And so I think the titles here are a little crazy. But Dean has agreed to be on today to help us because so much has come up about the difference between the eviction moratorium that came out from the CDC and the eviction moratorium that we have for the state of New Jersey. So Nina's I don't know if everybody can see Nina's face, but she's very upset that the slides are not what she wants them to be. So it's okay, Nina. We all joked about this, but we said we were going to have problems with this. So Dean, if you would be willing to step us through, we would really appreciate that. And I think you are unmuted.
Thank you. Yes. Can you hear me okay, Sharon?
We can. Thank you, Dean.
Terrific. Thank you, Sharon. I'd be delighted. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for pulling us all together in this manner this morning for a quite different legislative day. Indeed, I think someone mentioned in the chat, it's the Zoom where it happens. Not just the new room where it happens. And that's really, really true. So kudos to you and to Stacy, to Nina, to Matthew, Arnold, of course, your entire team in doing this despite the challenges. And hello, everyone. Extended hello to our fellow service providers, advocates, our legislators, of course. It's really a pleasure. So I won't take up a lot of time. and you sort of covered the CDC moratorium. I think Stacy did in the opening very briefly. Yes, it gets a little bit technical and confusing, and I'm sure some of our legislators can attest to the fact that they receive constituent inquiries about the eviction moratoriums all the time. And we certainly see that through our COVID-19 statewide portal that we manage at DCA. The bottom line for people to know is that the CDC's order, which came out September 1st, does not override our existing state moratorium on residential and foreclosures. It is not as broad and it is not as strong. And because we have an existing state moratorium that is stronger and broader, it remains in place. And there is no current need to instruct constituents who reach out to us to complete the required CDC declarations to stop an eviction. So let me go into that a little bit more. As you all know, on March 19th, our great governor, Governor Murphy, imposed a statewide suspension on residential evictions and foreclosures. So it covers not just tenants, but also homeowners. And the suspension, the moratorium suspended all removals and lockouts. It did not suspend the ability of landlords to file new cases. As Stacy and others have mentioned a couple of times, we're facing about 40-some thousand cases since we went into lockdown. Some of those were pending before, and new filings came in during the time that we've been in lockdown. But all tenants are protected. And this governor, and through the great advocacy of the network and others, the governor gets it. There's a real equity lens through which they do everything. And they've even expanded the protection to include hotel and motel residents who in some instances are treated as seasonal guests under traditional existing protections for the Anti-Eviction Act. So even those residents are protected by the moratorium. The state moratorium also applies to all kinds of evictions, not just non-payment of rent. The CDC moratorium is limited only to non-payment of rent evictions. It lasts throughout the end of the year through December 31st, 2020. And it's only open to certain tenants who are eligible. And they become eligible after they certify with their landlords a whole list of things, including their income level, their income loss during COVID, their medical expenses and other COVID-related expenses, and that they have done everything that they could in good faith to be able to pay the rent and to find employment, but they were not able to do so. The tenants are required to fill out this certification in order to become eligible, and they're subject to criminal penalties if it comes out later that, a tenant who's certified or attested to any one of those things may have not, in fact, acted in good faith. Obviously, the state moratorium does not present such barriers or restrictions on our tenants. And accordingly, the state moratorium is definitely stronger and broader. The CDC explicitly says that when a state moratorium is in place, that is stronger and broader in protecting all tenants, then it applies. As you know, the state moratorium will last during the state of emergency and for 2 months after the state of emergency is lifted. Governor Murphy has extended the state of emergency several times, most recently on August 26th, which means that the state of emergency will stay in effect until September 26th. And if it's not extended rather at that time, it will expire. That would mean that the moratorium that we have in place now, the state moratorium, remains in place until November 26th, which happens to be Thanksgiving Day. And if the governor extends the state of emergency again at the end of this month, that would bring our state protection through the end of the year anyway, making the CDC moratorium really mute to us here in New Jersey. So it was a good effort, certainly by the federal administration, to cover tenants across the country who are not protected by the state moratorium. And it will apply to our tenants as well if ours expires at the end of November. But we have reason to believe, and as some have already alluded to, the governor understands the need to extend the moratorium through the year and give us some sort of grace period that Stacy talked about in the beginning. Certainly by then we hope to have the People's Bill signed and enacted so that we can have a sustainable and reasonable system in place to keep people in their housing and to get landlords their money due. So hopefully that clears it up. And of course, we welcome constituent inquiries from any of you through our statewide portal. I manage that myself, so I try to get back to people as soon as possible. I also want to say that it's been a pleasure working with the network throughout this process. It's a natural, organic collaboration. You guys are amazing, and thank you for keeping us honest as well. Thank you for pushing us to think outside of the box during this unprecedented time when our usual solutions need to be a little bit more open and flexible and nimble, including instituting waivers where necessary and funding sources to make sure that we are providing services where they are needed. DCA's existing homelessness prevention programs are alive and well and funded, and vouchers continue to go out to people in SRAP and other rental assistance programs. While we're not in person down in Trenton, we are continuing to provide people their vouchers and the assistance. Subsidies have not been in any way suspended or terminated during this time. We've been accepting income recertifications by the mail and certainly online as well to make it as easy for people to continue getting their rent paid on time. And with that, unless there's any questions, I leave you and I thank you again. And I look forward to our continued collaboration. I'll plug that one of the things that we are working on together with the network, of course, with the network always, is a statewide right to counsel pilot. And we're really looking forward to rolling that out and launching that soon, because obviously no more than now, as we know and as we're seeing daily, is a right to counsel for our tenants extremely, extremely critical. So thank you all, really, and it's been a delight and pleasure to be with you.
It is always a pleasure to be with you, Dean. Thank you so much. I know that a lot of people have been very confused about the difference between what the CDC came out with and what our New Jersey executive order was. And we're very, very lucky that New Jersey's executive order is really very strong and stronger than the CDC order. So thank you for clarifying that. I know Terry Benson, who handles our housing counseling on staff, has been getting lots and lots of emails about it. So that really helped a lot to have that today. Actually, I see her nodding at you as I said that.
I actually got a call from a reporter while this was happening asking if I could clarify. So I may send her to you, Dean.
Absolutely, please do.
Because
I just wanted to,
it's 6 ways to Sunday.
I just wanted to say, if you don't mind, Stacey, we kept Dean waiting for a really, really, really long time on here. And I just wanted to let everybody know he is probably the most patient man in the world to be willing to do that for us. So thank you. We really do appreciate it, Dean. And I'm glad Stacey's computer came back on, so I will turn it back to you. We have Assemblyman Fryman with us, so you can go right there.
Great. I want to, we have 2 more speakers, and I believe that the Union County folks are breaking out to 2 more group speakers, and I believe that the Union County folks are breaking out to the Zoom room for Senator Cryan. So I know this is a little complicated, and literally everything on my laptop just died. Headphones, laptop, camera, the whole nine. So I appreciate everyone bearing with me. I predicted very early on in this event that there would be some glitches, but I didn't expect them to be on my end. So I want to welcome Assemblyman Roy Fryman, who's also represents Legislative District 16. We heard from Assemblyman Zwicker just a few minutes ago. We wanted to give Assemblyman Fryman a few minutes to say a few words, and then I believe we have Katie Brennan, who has been waiting patiently from the Housing Mortgage Finance Agency to talk about some of the programs they're rolling out that were actually referenced earlier in the program. So without further ado, Assemblyman.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. That picture kind of takes me back prior to COVID, before I have the required COVID beard that so many of us decided to grow. Thank you very much for actually continuing with this event in the Zoom world. I know it's really difficult to do breakouts and to adapt, and I do appreciate your flexibility. I also want to thank you for your advocacy. What you're doing and how you're advocating, especially now, is even more and more important. There is the urgency right now to protect the individuals and the homeowners and the renters and from the short term, from the advocating for the forbearance, for making sure that their credit ratings aren't destroyed and ruined, making sure people aren't foreclosed or thrown out of their homes or evicted for rentals. And I'm very happy to join my colleagues on signing on to these bills. So I thank you for doing that. I also am concerned thinking, because I have a background in strategy, so I think a little bit further down the road. That's my natural innate. So I think about now the concern I have of the mission of making housing affordable everywhere, making sure that we do not have barriers in every municipality on housing. But yet there is this flight coming out, and we see it coming out of New York City, bringing incredible wealth and immediately buying up properties. And what is that going to do? And is it going to actually make it harder with all of this this flight coming out, seeing real estate market exploding, and how does that impact? And I can't imagine it making it easier for the mission of trying to make it more affordable. So I am concerned about the consequences associated longer term of what this is going to do when property values are skyrocketing across the board right now. So that is something I have in my mind of the need of affordable housing when people are buying up houses, not even looking at them, and bidding them up, not even looking at them. So that is something on my mind of how do we, after we get out of the urgency and after we get out of the emergency, how do we get back to the core mission? How do we get back to the core mission of increasing housing at all income levels, and especially at the affordable housing income levels? So that's what, and I need your input, I need your help, because that was the original mission. And again, that's the strategy view that I look at things overall. So I want to, I do apologize there. I do want to make myself available for if there are any questions. I also just want to be honest in saying that there are people waiting for me at the top of the hour at noon to begin a meeting. But I also want to be respectful to everyone that is here, saying if you have any questions, I also want to be able to answer that as well.
We appreciate that so much, Assemblyman. And what we've been trying to do is schedule breakout meetings with Assembly members and senators at different times so that we're able to go into a little more depth. So Matt Hirsch, who is in the top left-hand corner of my screen, but I couldn't possibly predict where he is on your
I have no
your board. We should have played bingo, never mind trivia. And we'll make sure to follow up with you directly if there are questions, so we don't keep you
Okay.
here today. But we appreciate you and your time and your thoughts. And I share that concern about the skyrocketing issue of property values, not just in North Jersey, but all across the state. We've seen it in South Jersey too, folks coming from Philly, not just Manhattan. So it is something to pay attention to. It feels to me like we're seeing the aftershocks of the Great Recession, like all consolidated, like the marketplace all consolidated at once. So it's good to be thinking about long-term problems and solutions. And I will say your counterpart, Assemblyman Zwicker, raised some of those same issues as well when he was on. So it's clearly something that people are thinking about, and we will be following up with you about ways that we can make sure that everyone has a safe, affordable place to call home now during the pandemic and going forward. So thank you so much for being with us, and look forward to hearing from Matt and setting up another time to meet with you.
Thank you very much. And
Thank you. And thanks for
doing
supporting the
the
People's
work.
Bill. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care now.
Take care. Last, I think for our last speaker for the whole group, but certainly not the least, one of our favorite people to have with us, clearly one of the most patient people on the planet. Katie Brennan is the Chief of Staff at the Housing Mortgage Finance Agency. She is an absolute brilliant housing strategist. People ask me questions, I'm like, I don't know, I'm gonna call Katie because she knows this way better than I do. And she also has just a tremendous ability to cut through red tape and make things that seem impossible actually happen. So without making her wait any longer, I want to turn this over to Katie. She's going to share some of the work that the Housing Mortgage Finance Agency is doing to make sure that people have access to safe, affordable homes during the pandemic and after. I don't know if you were on when Assemblywoman Veneri Huddle talked, or maybe Mila talked, Assemblywoman JC talked about the HRC and the central.
Oh, I did
access.
miss Assemblywoman JC.
You missed her. She was talking about the bill being signed that requires everyone to report their affordable housing availability to HMFA and some of the penalties for failing to do that. So I said you might talk about that, but I don't know if you're actually planning to or not. So no pressure.
I was going to talk about it a little bit. Well, thank you, Stacy, and thank you, Network. I am remiss that I did not wear my maroon Lobby Day t-shirt. That was a missed opportunity. So I could have felt like I was there in the State House with you all. And thank you to everyone, all the assemblywomen and senators and that came before me. And I'm thrilled to see that people recognize that in this time of crisis, there has just never been such a clear tie between what being healthy is and being at home, and that it's hard to stay at home if you don't have a home, or that if you need to stay at home and your home is not safe because it's full of lead and toxins like mold or pests and things that exacerbate lung conditions or cause asthma in children. All of those are further COVID triggers. You know, everything is tied together here. And so, but moreover, of course, people need a safe, decent home they can afford, somewhere to call home, period. So throughout the crisis at New Jersey Housing and Mortgage Finance Agency, we were pleased to help write the executive order for the use of the security deposits and support things like the eviction moratoriums and the forbearances. But as many people have so aptly pointed out, that despite the ability to stay in your home, which is great, there's going to be an absolute mountain of back rent that will be due at the end of this. And that is a huge, huge tsunami that is coming. To that end, one of the program that is under review right now, and so we're trying to get money out the door as quickly as possible, that we were lucky to receive CARE funds for, was the Small Landlord Emergency Grant Program. It was really twofold. It was for the tenants and for small landlords. We wanted to make sure that people who did lose income during this time could stay in their homes, but also that back rent is gone, so that when the executive order ends, they don't have a big backlog of rent that they owe. So it both makes them whole and holds them harmless, but also the small landlords, because we know that most landlords in New Jersey they're smaller owners. A lot of them are kind of mom and pops, or they just own a handful of units. Same thing with a lot of the members of the network. Maybe you own majority small buildings, then we were calling things under 10 small buildings. And so we're trying to help as many folks as we can there, both on kind of both sides of the coin. It really goes hand in hand with the People's Bill of, okay, how do you make everybody there's no good option here. And how do you make as many people whole and safe as possible? But ultimately, we need people to be prepared to weather a disaster, post-COVID, and fewer people living paycheck to paycheck and more thriving, which means we need more affordable housing and the resources to do so. And we were glad that pre this health and economic crisis that we were able to recapitalize some of the special needs money. There's the trust fund, which the network has been so pivotal in restoring and bringing in a lot of creative partnerships, which in turn came with private dollars. But we always need more. And hearing some of Ms. Wicker talking about zoning and all of that, some of the wonkier sides of how we create affordable housing is really where the rubber hits the road in this. And how do we make it as easy as possible to create affordable housing in New Jersey, which is a high cost state, which is a high regulatory state in terms of home rule and all the various steps that it takes even just to build housing, which is in no small part why it's expensive here. And so I'm happy to discuss that and any kind of creative ideas that anyone has, be it all of you or any of the legislators, on how we can kind of rethink building housing and make sure that everyone in New Jersey has a safe, decent place to call home. I did also, it seems that Assemblywoman JC spoke to it. I also wanted to talk about the passage of S 2527. So for those who are not familiar, for a long time, the agency has hosted something called the Housing Resource Center. It's basically like affordable Zillow, affordable Craigslist. And we have required our properties to list their available units on the website, but frankly could do a better job of enforcing that and making sure that even when they have a waiting list, the building's been open for 20 years and they've got the waiting list open, that is on there. But no one else was ever required to list on that. And so now what this bill does is it really makes sure that every single property that wants to get its COA, its fair share of points, has to register on this website, which is almost all affordable housing across the state. And so we will finally have much more of a one-stop shop that has all of the available affordable housing units, including inclusionary developments. So the kinds of things that you may never know are being built. You may not know that a development in a suburban area has a smattering of affordable units for sale or rental in it. And now all of that will be available. So when people are looking for housing, it'll be less of a slog to even find the homes. People give us, I'm sure the network gets calls like this every day looking for apartments. We do too, and I've got nothing to show them because I'm not a landlord myself besides this website. And so we're really happy about that. And it also speaks to a few other things, namely that units have to do a lottery, be much more serious about the affirmative marketing plan. And those things are important and all tie into what the Attorney General announced last week as well, which is this much more concerted effort to make sure that New Jersey is integrated and to fight against segregation. We've seen a lot of destruction of fair housing laws at the federal level, but here in New Jersey, we're making sure that we are an integrated and welcoming state and that we are going to hold people accountable for being discriminatory. And I kind of behind the scenes, HMFA has been forging a much more deliberate relationship with the Division of Civil Rights over the past several years. And I look forward to assisting them on this mission and also to starting to hold ourselves accountable. We're taking a lot stronger look at, okay, so we financed an affordable housing building. Who is moving in there? Where are they coming from? What happens once they're there? Where do they go after? How long do they stay? We say all these things. We put on all these requirements for, in particular, tax credit buildings. Is it working? and making sure that with the Division of Civil Rights that our policies are are as progressive and effective as we want them to be. And so we're pleased to work with the Attorney General's office on that, and look forward to, as of November 1st, having a lot more availability to where the affordable housing units are.
Katie, we've gotten a couple of requests for the website link.
Yeah, here I'll drop that in the chat and just.
Okay, and then we'll once it's live, we'll put it on the on our website. Obviously, we'll refer people. I probably get 3 phone calls a day between work and people who know what I do for work, asking where they can find affordable housing. And I think anybody who's worked for the network or works in an affordable housing organization gets those same calls. So it will be really great. I think the only, there may be a gap in some of the more urban communities.
I was actually just going to say that for everyone in a non-COA community, we have heard that Hudson County, but in Jersey City is working on this, is going to use it, and they're going to start putting their units on there. That's my understanding.
That's great.
I've received word that Newark would be interested in this, and so we're working on that. But for people in the non-COA municipalities across the state that you have relationships in, this is free. Maybe I should make that more clear. It's free advertising, and all affordable housing owners are already required to advertise it somewhere. But what happens a lot of the time is they put ads in the newspaper and back in the classified that nobody reads. They're maybe not even putting it online. The rules about these things are very antiquated, and this was an attempt to update some of that, because it's just not how people find apartments these days. And so we're working on our end too to make sure that the site is more mobile friendly, that there's better maps, all of that, a lot of updates that we've already made. And so I will share that link with you all. And for anybody who has a relationship with a municipality or a county or a local agency that has any kind of home money, things like that. When I was at Hudson County, we just stuck a line in our policy that if we gave you money, you had to list on the site, period. And it's easy for anybody else to do, no cost to them. So if you have questions about that too, let me know.
Great. Well, we really appreciate all of your regulatory advocacy, I would call it, right? Making sure that the agencies and the state is giving people the best opportunity to find a safe, affordable place to call home, to helping with the landlord emergency grants. We had some requests about information for that. Unless I'm mistaken, that's quite over. That money went quickly. That's why people should be a member of the network, because when we get that information from HMFA, we're able to get it out to you right away. It went out instantly. It was actually a program that we had advocated for. It was a version of the landlord incentive program that happened under Superstorm Sandy that didn't work out as well as we'd hoped. This seems like a much better iteration of that, and it's something that we're continuing to fight for. Additional resources for smaller landlords, ones in two family units, as well as between 10 and 25, where there are nonprofit landlords who have smaller units that need to be able to help people pay their rent. So we're continuing to advocate for tenant, for landlord property-based rental assistance, project-based rental assistance, landlord-based rental assistance, as well as tenant-based rental assistance. We need all the rental assistance that we can get, and that we want the state and the federal government to do their fair share. If we can't afford to give everyone rental assistance, we need to give people time. And that's why we support both the HEROES Act and the People's Bill. And we will continue to do that as part of our advocacy work in this budget cycle and in whatever this legislative session looks like. So I want to thank Katie for her inordinate patience and willingness to stay with us to share that information. She's just a rock star and a friend of the network and a friend of mine. And it's really
too nice to me.
Not true. Not nice.
I'll put that link in. Have a great lobby day, everyone. And
thank you.
See you all soon. Bye-bye.
Woohoo! I think that wraps up our organized speakers, Sharon.
So I have a little bit to add, but yes, that's true. We have a couple people that it didn't quite work out with getting them into here today, but they did ask for in-district meetings, so we will be putting those together. Anyone that was on today, you'll be getting a reach out from us regarding those in-district meetings, and we'll be setting them up. Because we thought we were going to end at 12 and it's now 12:19, we will not do the trivia contest. I'm sorry about that. But what we will do is have it as part of our annual conference, which was the next thing I was supposed to speak about. So we have our annual conference, and it will be by Zoom over 2 days, Thursday and Friday, October 15th and 16th. There'll be a morning session, a lunch keynote with awards, and we will also have an afternoon session both days, and you'll have an opportunity to jump in and out of several different workshops. Nina, you're right on it. Thank you. We also have now, registration is open. We have made this so affordable. So please participate. And we have the registration, I said, is open, and also we have nominations for Outstanding Municipal Partner Awards. So if you are a member of the network and you've worked with a municipal partner in getting a project completed, please make sure that you go there and nominate them. There are several different categories, and we really want to make sure that you do that. So please register for the conference. It will be great. It will be recorded. You'll have access to all of the different workshops, whether you can't possibly be in every Zoom room at the same time, right? So this way you'll get to see them all at a different time, any one that you want to be part of. So I also want to make a quick announcement that DCA has some funding available to bring people that they're working with the different county COCs going through the HIMSS system, and they have money to pay landlords to take tenants and get them out of homelessness, out of shelters, out of transitional housing, and get them into housing. They will pay for the deposit. They will pay for the 6 months to 1 year of rent. And they are also providing some funding for some case management to help the people get settled and have ongoing funding and be able to continue with that apartment. So please, 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 if you have an available apartment, reach out to DCA or reach out to us and we'll connect you with the right person. But reach out to DCA. We will have in the follow-up materials that are coming out after today, we'll have the information on that program for you in that packet of materials. I'm done, Stacy.
Thanks, Sharon. Thanks. I just want to thank Sharon. Clearly, I'm not in charge of the Zoom. I might be the president and CEO, but not in charge of the Zoom. I want to thank once more Sharon, Matt, Carol, Nina, Leah, Jessica, the rest of our amazing staff, Arnold, for making today possible, and our board members. I don't know if I see everybody on here, but Laura Rogers, John Restrepo, I'm looking at screens here. I know folks.
Bob Karashi was on. He's
Bob
been
Karashi, folks from Parkside Business Community and Partnership. I can't see through all the screens, so I'm just going to say thanks to our board and everybody for being with us. We've got new board members, potential new board members on as well. So it's really great to have so many familiar and new faces with us. We really enjoyed having all of you. I think some of the breakout meetings are still going on, and some of the breakout meetings will be scheduled over the next few days. There will be additional packets of information. Please don't forget to check our Facebook page and our website for the Drive to Survive, the car caravan next Thursday. We'll be meeting at 12:30 at the network office to support the People's Bill, push the Senate to not start over, but get people the help they need right now. There will be additional materials on that DCA support for homeless folks to put them in safe and affordable homes. We believe that we can do so much more when we do things together. We are absolutely dependent on each other now more than ever to get through this pandemic and to make sure that everyone has a safe, affordable place to call home. We're grateful for your membership and your partnership and appreciate all the work that each and every one of you do every day. So thanks for being with us. Give yourselves a big round of applause. And thanks again. We'll see you all hopefully next year in May. We'll all be able to wear our t-shirts at the State House, but know that we'll continue to advocate and fight for each and every one of you, no matter what the conditions are.
Yep.
Hope we can be at the State House next time.
I hope so too, Barbara. I hope so too.
I want to see my buddies.
Yep. We want to see you too. Bye. Thank you.
All right. Nice seeing you.
Everyone.
Bye.